Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Unacademy. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Success Sampath interacting with you. Do you want to become IAS, IPS, IFS, IRS? Ladies and gentlemen, be Unacademy with top educators of India and meticulously designed quality content. We have been waiting for you, waiting to shape you especially so that you become leader according to your own capacity. Once you enroll yourself in an academy, ladies and gentlemen, you will undergo a great learning experience. Yes, India's largest and the best online education platform. What are all the benefits you are likely to get once you enroll yourself in an academy? Of course, you got daily live classes, and you got, you can chat with your educator. You can engage in all round discussions. You can also ask all your genuine doubts and participate in the answer polls. All these things you can do when the session's going on. And you got structured courses here completely based on UPSC Civil Service Examination pattern and syllabus as well, so that we ensure you never get deviated from the expected framework. And well, we are keep on emphasizing this particular point, of course, not knowing the stuff, knowing to deliver the stuff, because delivery matters. And it's not what you deliver, rather, how do you deliver? Ladies and gentlemen, when that is the situation, you've got a mechanism to evaluate your preparation at various stages by conducting regular mock tests and quiz. And that report will tell you where you are strong, where you are weak, and also you come to know how much time you took in solving a particular question. Ladies and gentlemen, once you enroll yourself in an academy, you got unlimited access, more than 1 million videos. You can also learn from anywhere, anytime, irrespective of your, that electronic device. It may be mobile phone or laptop or desktop. Ladies and gentlemen, so you got, that this much of, that the benefits. Please download an academy learning app at once, because immediately. So whether it is Android or iOS, ladies and gentlemen, that you will encounter, of course, that what the benefits we enlisted you are likely to access. Who is this interacting with you? Of course, this is Success Sampath from Chennai with unique experience, that got exposed to the fields of, engineering, management, and legal education with 25 years of experience in the field of, the coaching, especially shaping the careers of, civil service aspirants. With my team, I could witness the humble results. Of course, 250 plus results as, IAS, IPS, IFS, IRS officials. All my kids are working in different parts of India and some of them in abroad as well. Part of External Affairs Ministry, you might be aware. And you can also ask me, what's your vision, sir? When that's going to be your question, ladies and gentlemen, let me say, to provide career solution, especially by enabling youths of India to begin with. Later, to embrace the global community. Fortunately, this particular vision of mine is completely in alignment with an academy's vision. We are working together. Shape you so that you realize your dream. You become officer or leader in your own capacity. And you can also reach me through Telegram channel, even that the YouTube channel, part of an academy, and also by downloading the app, the platform itself, you can witness all my the live videos, because you can use my ID, Success Sampath or Sampath Tiruvengidam. Ladies and gentlemen, yes, it's not only me, part of an academy, more than 100 plus top educators of India, they're waiting to shape you, shape your career, right? So under UPSC Civil Service Examination, we got two major programs, Plus program and Iconic program. That apart from the advantages of the Plus program, we strongly emphasize Iconic program, where you got, your personal coach, a mentor to understand your nature and to suggest your study planner accordingly. And also you will be trained on everyday basis in terms of, answer writing practices. You will come to know. But in spite of that, the advantages on the part of, the Plus, of course, you got live classes, test series, unlimited practice sessions, and you got structured schedule mechanism. Ladies and gentlemen, this particular point we are keep on emphasizing whatever may be your budget, whatever, and also the availability of your time, that for this particular aspiration. From 1 month to maximum, that the 3 years for which we have got a program, and you can choose what suits you. That is what I'm saying. Once you know that very clear that this is what's suitable to you, of course you have to get it. Well. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's not only that for GS prelims, mains program and subject wise that module, and you got that we support you for optional subject also. You please use my referral code, say success, to avail maximum 10% discount, ladies and gentlemen. And as I told you, more than plus program, iconic program with unique feature. That here also you got the flexible schedule. You can choose accordingly, ladies and gentlemen. Please use my referral code, say success, to avail maximum 10% discount. That technically speaking, you end up paying near 80 to 100 rupees if you calculate in terms of per day basis, right? Of course, that, ladies and gentlemen, is that way we are talking about. Of course, that you understand better, but that the very consumption towards your evening snacks, but you're going to ensure your career parallel. Of course, yeah, very good evening, Mr. Siddharth, and I appreciate you, for your regular participation, and also and and someone has asked me to speak in that Hindi. Of course, this is English medium. Yes, that if you want that the Hindi, you can go for the bilingual program on the platform already available. That in Unacademy YouTube channel. This is meant for 100% that English program. Hope you understand. And if it is going to be your option is English medium, you please try to follow me. Of course, that thoda thoda Hindi मालूम hai, सब कुछ नहीं मालूम hai. Hope you understand. Huh? Yeah, right. It is that way, ladies and gentlemen. And all popular subjects, that the optional subjects, we support here. And also, when it comes to, as I told you, right, from minimum 1 month to maximum, the 3 years, time duration for which we support you. Accordingly, that the fee payment, please use my referral code, say success, to avail maximum 10% discount. Ladies and gentlemen, this is right time. Let me take you to the very purpose of our interaction today. Purpose with a direction. Of course, this is in continuation of the various, that sessions we had already interacted with. People who missed that, please go back and watch all those programs also. Very good evening, Mr. Jyoti Das. Welcome to Unacademy. This is Success Sampath interacting with you, especially on the optional subject called Sociology. Well, this subject matter, Sociology, is highly scoring and also very popular. Why? Because you are living in this society. This subject is all about society. System or network of social relationships existing among people, the human beings. When you say society, you don't address mere people, something more than that, something which connects them, something, the people are bound by, when. So when that is the sense, of course, we are talking about, you make study over a society, in terms of, that integrated manner, even scientific manner, systematic manner, because you understand when you talk about society, which has got multifaceted aspects of the society, you speak in terms of various social institutions. When you talk about multifaceted aspects, and the very institutions, when I say marriage, family, your relatives, of course, kinship, educational institution, economic institution, political institution, religious institution, and beyond that, your identity, what the caste you belong to, the gender, of course, the race belong to, the class you belong to. People are stratified. And also the very society, the system or network of social relationships put together called society, that also, undergoes change, because nothing is permanent in this world. There is a saying in Tamil, மாறாதது மாற்றம் ஒன்றுதான். That's according to Karl Marx. Even Bhagavad Gita subscribing the same point of view. The change is permanent. This too shall pass. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, you understand. So this is about social change. Structurally, culturally, functionally. When you talk about, interrelationship existing among various social institutions, you talk about structure. Change in structure, you call modernization. When you talk about change in culture, of course, change in terms of your value system, way of life, style of life, your food habits, dress style, whatever may be, the faith, the belief system, custom, tradition. When you address all these aspects of your life, of course, well, the culture is the blueprint of society. The culture at the level of the society comes to an individual, through the process called socialization, you call in common parlance as brought up. There ultimately, that you are taught in such a way, you take in, you internalize, put together. Institutionalization plus internalization put together we call socialization. In common parlance, it is brought up. So culture at the level of society comes to an individual. Otherwise, individuals are molded or conditioned to the culture of the society, which is said to be modality, process, blueprint. So this is what, a brief introduction about, the very sociology, well. But which is very popular. Why? Because you are part of the society. Society is in you. That's directing you. that's guiding you. The various agents of socialization. Of course, charity begins at home, we say, starts from your family, then peer group, your educational institutions, then your community, even social media. Of course, that today, shaping your ideas, molding you, the various agents of socialization. Of course, you come to know. So we are talking about all these things, there is judgment, it is that way. But the very study, what you make, why it is popular, because you are in touch with that. Society is in you. You're part of the society. That's why it's popular. Because, otherwise, let me say, sociology already. I'm cheating you. I'm not teaching you anything. I'm just acting like teaching you. Huh? Well, because, you know about society. You are living in this society. You got understanding about socialization, culture. Maybe you may not be having only thing, the nomenclature, the appropriate key. Maybe you don't know the perspectives, the various thinkers of, sociology. Otherwise, you know everything. What I'm going to do, I'm going to give shape to your understanding. That is what I'm talking about. The very shape, when I say, of course, that, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about. The shape to your understanding, when I say, that we formalize your understanding by bringing them under perspectives, by giving them nomenclatures, as I told you, by linking with, any one of the sociologists, maybe even Indian sociologists. All, that we also discuss, that the series of, basic concepts. Please, go back and, that after this session, you please watch all the videos already available the platform YouTube channel. You will get more ideas. We also suggested it's very easy to score more than 450 out of 500. Don't say it is, ambitious. Why? You can. Why not? I did. I scored good marks in sociology. Same way you can. Even in SCGS, it's possible, that so you have to understand. First, you have to believe yourself. It's not only that we share technology. Please watch that video. You will understand better how. And this sociology has got its own, that advantages when you prepare for the subject matter sociology, because you parallelly you can score good marks in general studies paper, even SCA paper. And when you enter into, the oral interview part of mains, of course, that you score fantastic marks, because the byproduct of sociology we call objectivity. You never take sides. You never get influenced. Of course, your preference is totally different. I'm not talking about bias or influence. The sociology is a subject matter which talks about objectivity. You are free from speculation, but you are very decisive. Well, you come to know. So that is why, the subject matter of sociology, the scientific study, systematic study, integrated study they make over society. After that, the report, arrived at is called very precise, accurate. Why? You see the two sides of single coin. Each and every concept would have traveled through various perspectives. When I talk about perspectives in sociology, we already dealt. The major perspectives in sociology, of course, structural functionalism, that treats society as a system, as if it has got order. Anything which promotes that order, stability, cooperation, they could be called as, functional to that particular society. Anything that weakens already existing, the social order, stability, equilibrium, social integration, they could be called as, dysfunctional to that particular society. Society as a system, as if it has got order. You also look at things in terms of functional, dysfunctional. That's social stratification. You got people like Talcott Parsons, even Emile Durkheim, and R.K. Mitton, even the Indian sociologist M.N. Srinivas, structural functionalist. But when you talk about, another perspective, that's called conflict school of thought. That there comes ultimately, I'm also parallelly briefing, because we already deal these perspectives. Please watch those videos also. But there comes my responsibility, because today also we are going to deal those, perspectives. Another perspective, of course, I say conflict school of thought. That's because of the Karl Marx. Then there comes, Max Weber to join in, even Ralph Derrida. And in Indian sociologists, of course, A.R. Desai and D.P. Mukherjee. You will come to know, that all those people. What is that? The history of hitherto all existing societies full of struggle. Struggle between haves and have-nots. Even day-to-day life, you see struggle. Individuals struggling, social groups struggling, the government struggling, unable to cope up with COVID crisis, right? Struggle is part of the life, right? You have to understand. That. So that's what the Karl Marx said. The history of hitherto existing societies full of struggle, the antagonism, the conflict between haves and have-nots. Simplified the whole society into two. That a classification. That's what he's like, a polarization of classes. The haves and have-nots, rich, poor, capitalist, proletariats. Because it is that way. Bourgeois, proletariats, capitalist working class. It is that sense. There is German, it is that way that, of course, it's on that ground. He's also criticized it is too simplification. What about middle class, the emergence of middle class? All those stuffs. In today's unit, we are going to, that elaborate more also. So what happens that why struggle, why conflict? It is because of the exploitation. House trying to exploit the have-nots, rich trying to exploit the poor. Sometimes governments trying to that encourage that the sphere of that Aam Aadmi, common people. That's also governmental exploitation. You talk about that sense. You say encouragement in the name of that special economic zones. That we compromise agricultural lands. That happened Tata Singur. What happened Mamta? But Mamta is struggling now. That's totally different scenario, well, in West Bengal. So we are talking about all these things. What is the point? The history speaks about, history of hitherto all existing societies full of struggle between haves and have-nots, the struggle, the conflict, the antagonism because of the exploitation of have-nots by haves. That's what, dialectical materialism or historical materialism, according to Karl Marx, we are talking about. So that talks about change, the change by revolution, because of the struggle, because of the exploitation, because of the antagonism. The people got, exploited. They come together. World proletariats unite together. Even in Tamil, there is a song, Ulaikkum Thodargale Ondru Koodungal. I think I spoke already in Thinker's portion. The old song, I think, on the roadside you would have seen. The Dravidian parties used to play that, of course, Huh? The world proletariat, even Kannadasan got influenced by the Karl Marx. I'm talking about the film lyric writers in Tamil Nadu. Maybe people from different parts of India, you may not be knowing, even film songs representing the social justice principles of Karl Marx. Of course, you come to know. I'm just trying to connect. Of course, you can connect with, your own, the language, that movies, songs, whatever maybe if need. Right? It is that way. That change because of the revolution. People come together, they go for revolution. Ultimately, that's radical, of course. So the establishment of classless communist society is the political goal of the Marxism. You might be aware. So that's what conflict school all about. You might be. So structural functionalism, conflict school of that. Another perspective, of course, symbolic interactionism. So that all the interaction out of the outcome of the interaction, that you arrive at, you interpret, you infer. So the symbolic interactionism perspective, which is, of course, that's going to be the future of sociology also, you might be aware. So we discussed all those thinkers part of, the various perspectives in the beginning, ladies and gentlemen. So the Karl Marx, of course, that Emile Durkheim, Max Weber, Talcott Parsons, Robert K. Merton, G.H. Mead, even Indian sociologists, of course, the ontological perspective, G.S. Gurye, and also, the structural functionalism school of that, of course, M.N. Srinivas. Even the very, that you talk about A.R. Desai, the Marxist tradition. So applying various perspectives, concepts, what you learn out of paper 1 of sociology in Indian context is otherwise called paper 2. It is well. Is that way, that nothing more than that. The whole syllabus is very simple. Don't get, that don't, that get confused, because otherwise the whole syllabus has been elongated in such a way. The whole society has been, that given to you in terms of syllabus as variety of social institutions. At the end of each and every, that the paper, you got social change. That's what simple syllabus. And also there comes the role of, basic concepts. Very crucial role. I elaborated. Please, you watch all those videos. Some of the newcomers who miss my portions, please watch that videos, understand that. And of course, I said in the beginning, it's the sociology is all about society and various aspects of the society through various social institutions. And also you address the change of the society through the units called social change and social change in India. And theories associated with that, perspectives and sociologists, case studies. And you got one more aspect of this particular society called, society is getting stratif. The social stratification, otherwise called a process. There is German I'm talking about. It's a process. It is a process through which you make layering in the people. Of course, it's derived from the geographical term, the sedimentary rocks, one layer above another. Make layering in the people. And there is also psychological tendency on the part of every human being to be different from others. I'm a different man. And do you want to make difference in the lives of so many people in the world? He asked you the question. Yes, sir. I want to make difference. That's why you are here. You're sitting in front of me. You want to become officer. You want to become leader. You want to be part of nation building process. You want to be part of the steel pillars of the administration called bureaucracy. Ladies and gentlemen, when that's the scenario, of course, that we talk about why the psychological makeup of every human being to be different from others. That is why identity. It's all about identity. That when people are stratified, it's a process. When I say social stratification, it's a process. So that I think in the nowadays you don't get that advertisement in television. First of all, that you don't sit much because you are preoccupied with all this preparation. SS, which is equal to sir. There came one advertisement, Pepsodent. Let me say whatever maybe. So there comes, I say Tamil advertisement. You link with your own language advertisement. எதிரிகளை அழிச்சிட்ட sir. Sir, 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 military way. That the son of a kid born to a military officer says, that, using that, the toy, that the revolver saying, எதிரிகளை அழிச்சிட்ட sir. How? The dad will ask. Immediately the kid will say, yeah, because, that I ultimately went for, that brushing my teeth, of course, using Pepsodent. I should not say brown. No rule, of course. What may be the brand? Using that, the paste. Oh, yeah, that paste fought against all those germs, killing the germs. It is that way. So advertisement goes, forget, sir. The military command like, sir. Social stratification. I give you the code SS, which is equal to sir. What do you mean by sir? SI plus R. What is this SI? Social stratification is all about socially created inequalities with ranking. Put it simply. If you call anybody sir, it should come to your mind. Sir, don't ask me what is the expansion for madam. Hello. I read your mind voice, of course. This is for sir. I'm not male chauvinistic. It's not patriarchal nature. Of course, just for example, of course, ladies and gentlemen. So social stratification, which is equal to SS, which is equal to sir, keep in your mind, because that 100% effectively communicating the letter and spirit meaning of this. What is that? Socially created inequalities with ranking, gradation. There comes question. Why do you socially create? On what basis? There comes criteria. That's why you speak about various forms of social stratification, maybe slavery, ancient slavery. Then, of course, that land-based ownership, you call, that there you talk about estate system. Here, landlord serfdom, you call accordingly. Maybe, that associated with that system in Indian society, unique nature, you witness caste system. But Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, of course, the purity pollution is the notion. By birth, you are said to be impure or pure. That's the ancient version. But we did historical recorrection. That's why, that the constitution through which we talk about reservation or protective discrimination, the stuff. Even now, what Manu said, that the election plank, the political parties are fighting for. What Manu said, what way we can. Of course, you got constitution, but of course, the political expediency. That's what at the end of the day, politics, fishing in the troubled water. What you were doing hitherto, only when the election is nearing, you started. Of course, that I don't think, that it's all political expediency, exploitation. That I know double standards of all these guys, that probably most of the people may not be knowing. We see what they are doing. The double standards on the part of our leaders, reject them. Come on. What is the point? The socially created inequalities on the basis of a particular criteria, maybe in terms of age, in terms of gender, in terms of caste, in terms of race, in terms of knowledge, in terms of ownership over economic resources, you call class. Maybe in terms of course, in future, the knowledge, IQ. Maybe in terms of how to, how you gel with others, how you get along with others emotionally. Maybe emotional intelligence. From IQ to EQ. Maybe in future. Stratification I'm talking about. It is that way. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a process of making layering in the people. Ultimately, why do you that you socially create? It's socially constructed inequalities, socially created inequalities on the basis of a particular because the whole society, if you take into account that the criteria may differ from that society to spatially, temporally, place to place, time to time. You see the differences. Ladies and gentlemen, you talk about. So it is not mere, the making layering. Accordingly, you go for ranking high, low, above, below, one above the another, because layering. So hierarchy, gradation. Accordingly, you talk about privileges, disprivileges. It's very fortunate if you're top of the hierarchy. If it is very unfortunate if you're bottom of the hierarchy. You're likely to get oppressed, suppressed. That's why historical recorrection. The caste system, that maybe in the beginning based on division of labor, it was functional. Over the days, what happened? It became rigid. The very purity pollution notion and associated social distance and taboos, what happened? The people who came in the lower rank got oppressed and suppressed. That is why historical recorrection, we are talking about. Even Dr. Ambedkar, you might be, you embrace Nahar movement, all those steps. Even the various conversions happened, Buddhism, Jainism, even conversion to Christianity, Islam happened because of the, that ill effects on the part of Hinduism. You might be aware. But it's very fortunate, even in spite of this 800 years of, Mughal rule, the Hinduism could adjust itself. That because it has got, that the religious tolerant principle. I'm not talking about, the people who misinterpret the very spirit of, Hinduism. Got the idea? The very Hinduism is a very tolerant religion. The people who misinterpret for their own favor, that's totally different. Because according to Hinduism, all paths leading to, that same destination. Even Christianity there says, all roads leading to Rome. Christianity speaks. There are various ways with which, that you can reach God. If Hinduism is one path, Islam another path, Christianity another path, that the Buddhism, Jainism, Judaism, yep, it's up to you. It's not fighting, that one path competing with another path. So mine is the best. My way is the highway. No, that's a problem then. Of course, that you become ethnocentric when you speak about, well, the identity crisis, of course. So this high, low, above, below, privileges, disprivileges, because of the ranking of the notion. So put together, socially constructed, socially created inequalities, along with gradation, ranking, the hierarchy. Accordingly, people are, that feeling disprivileged or disprivileged. Whole process put together called social stratification, that talks about, that your status in a particular society. The status may be ascribed or achieved. The status may be ascribed, which is given to you. You can't change in your lifetime. When you talk about status, it could be ascribed, achieved, I say. Ascribed, achieved. What do you mean by ascribed? The status which is given to you. You can't change in your lifetime. That's what called, ascribed status. Achieved status, it's totally, you earn in your lifetime. Ascribed status may be the age, the gender. If you are, the 22 this year, next year you have to become 23. Even without asking your permission. It's a natural phenomenon. Maybe if you start sleeping in the oxygen chamber, probably, that maybe the rate with which, your dead cells are getting replaced may be very slow. Maybe the next year you are 22 point, of course, 9, maybe. In the future it is going to be, right? There'll be like we now we are purchasing, that water cans, na? Of course, the same way there will be a purchasing of, that the gas already it started selling in Chennai. It is there in Delhi and all there. You can that breathe, a pure oxygen, huh? Given, that of course even Trump said filthy. Now US said Trump is filthy, huh? You know the story, right? It is that way, ladies and gentlemen. So ascriptive status, achieved status. Achieved status, the status which you earn by application of your efforts. You want to be healthy, that's in your hand. You want to be wealthy, that's in your hand. You want to be an intellectual, well learned person. It's not mere information, wisdom that supports your decision making process. Ladies and gentlemen, so you earn in your lifetime with your efforts, but you can change your status by, if you think that way. Achieved status, ascribed status, you can never change. That is given to you, the gender, the age, the race you belong to. Of course, there are exceptional cases like Michael Jackson, that a black, of course, colored person, that who went for plastic surgery. Of course, Michael Jackson 50, that's why. Anything that goes against nature, you know what will happen. Of course, that all those stuff. He changed his racism, and it's not, by complexion only. The plastic surgery, that went against his time. The stuff we are talking about, and the European mine workers, that they go, that because of unemployment, they went to Thailand and they went for human genital transplantation. A male became female. Maybe he decided, like, that one director here, Parthipan, speaks, female irupade male. Maybe, that there is a saying, that he became, that became people called she-male. They are indulging in, that the commercial sex workers they are. So these and all the things happen in life. That even the transgenders, they go for genital transplantation. You might be aware. All these things we are talking about. So status, what you get in your life may be ascribed, given to you, that attributed to you, or maybe achieved, you earn in your lifetime, put together we call. It is that way, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, that your status in life, the social position that you enjoy may be ascriptive or achieved. We're talking about that identity. So this is, I'm not talking about individual identity. Of course, that in a society, the whole people are stratified, classified based on a particular criteria. Otherwise, socially constructed, socially created inequality with ranking or hierarchy. That is what all about social stratification that exists in various forms. As I said, slavery, caste system, maybe in the European society, a state system. Of course, the class system, we say that way, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about, now, of course, right. So it's that way, that's introduction. Then we are going to talk about in what way this particular unit is relevant to your UPSC Civil Service Examination preparation in terms of syllabus. And also I am going to establish the context, why this particular unit is very, very important after thinkers. Because that in 2019, you had 4 questions from this particular unit. You will come to know. See, what I'm speaking, I'm not speaking anything new to you. You know everything. I'm just using different nomenclatures. I'm going to introduce perspectives, some thinkers. I'm not speaking anything big because you know everything already. You have to understand. That the greatest sin, according to Swami Vivekananda, is underestimating yourself. You underestimate yourself. That is the greatest sin in the world. Because you are part of the boson particle. You are part of the godliness is in you. The God is in you. You are part of the God. Just unleash your potential. You know everything. There are so many things acting as an obstacle. Maybe I may be helpful to you to remove those obstacles, the blemishes on your pure mark, right, ladies and gentlemen. It is that way. My relevance. That a teacher is a page ahead of the students. Of course, my role is not to teach, rather to inspire you. I believe, the hope, the blessings of the God I'm doing, I believe. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's that way. So the social stratification, that through syllabus and also through previous year questions, I'm going to establish the relevance. You will understand the significance or importance of this particular unit, and also the basic concepts I have to take you. I just gave introduction. The basic concepts part of the social stratification and various theories involved. As I told you, structural functionalism, conflict school of thought, and also the very dimensions, that the various forms, the basic concepts, maybe I'll be talking about poverty, relative deprivation, inequality, and everything. But dimensions, otherwise called various forms of social stratification. The criteria differs from society to society, spatially, temporally, because social stratification as a process universal. No society is free from stratification. Social stratification is universal phenomenon. That's why, but the forms vary. The content remains the same. Forms may be varying. That is what. And finally, because of the social stratification, you come to know whether the society is open or closed. When the society is open, the people are, that easily they can move in the ladder. They can move above, and also sometimes maybe some wrong decision, they come down, like Vijay Mallya, Nirav Modi, and the Sahara scam, Subrata Rai, they come down in the ladder. But you can also move up, like Sundar Pichai, like Jack Ma, that, like, that the proven industrialist, established industrialist I'm talking about. It is, by sheer effort. It may be within a generation, intergenerational, intragenerational. When we say social mobility, it may be vertical mobility or some upward, downward, or sometimes horizontal mobility that talks about mere migration, same status. So social mobility is all about how mobile a section of population, movement of people from one stratum to another. It is that way we are going to elaborate the social mobility. Accordingly, open system, closed system. I'm going to use the global index also to justify how closed or open we are in terms of one social mobility index. You will come to know with India's ranking, and also the resources to be consulted after my class, my session, my interaction, my discussion with you. What are the resources that you can that consult, so that you move to the next level? I'm your foundation. Okay, that I'm your foundation. You can build superstructure when you go and refer all those resources. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, this is what our content of interaction today. I'm going to elaborate. Hope you would have understood. I think right. It is the right time. Let me take you to the next level. Of course, we spoke about sociology. I gave that enough introduction. If you're newcomers, otherwise you watch previous videos, you get more And when we talk about, the social stratification and mobility, this is what introduction we gave, to make you understand what a social stratification is all about. In Indian context, you might be aware the caste system in India, where the pyramid you see, that the whole people got stratified. It's not, modern creation, the ancient version. Of course, people say Manu, but there are people saying we don't know Manu. But of course, that Manu got mentioned. Even in Tamil Nadu, there is a struggle today. How Manu spoke against, the women, how Manu labeled women. So the political parties are, they're trying to, of course, the new found opportunity. Yeah? They are seizing opportunity when they are nearing election. Opportunistic politics, you might be aware. Identity politics, otherwise. Of course, the Dalit politics, history of Dalit politics, if you happen to see, it is a revenge politics. The people who hitherto got oppressed and suppressed because they, very well see, they are treated like chandalas, outcast. See, when you talk about caste system, you got, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, right? That's according to, that all Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra called twice born, Dvijya. So according to that, the caste system, the ancient version byproduct, but it was based on division of labor in the beginning. Later, it got crystallized. It acquired rigidity. It was the beginning. It was, working very well. The judgment system, whatever may be the outcome of the caste system, it was functional. Over the days, it became rigid. That's why, that why, that even Ambedkar has got his own clear cut explanation. And at the Hindu system, because of this, discrimination, we cannot get justice. Let me embrace, Buddhism. He started Mahar movement. That and all the things happen, that on the part of, B.R. Ambedkar, the untouchable, that outcast, that why, that untouchable, why I'm untouchable, all those things, that in the line of Ingersoll, you might be aware. So it is that way we are talking about, ladies and gentlemen. So the very hierarchy, if you're, that when you go up, you are more pure. When you come down, you are more impure. So, that I'm giving, that in Indian context example, what is social stratification is all about. It is socially created inequality. Right? Maybe you call Manu, maybe the ancient, the society responsible for this, of course. But in the later Vedic period, the very caste system got crystallized into. You might be aware. What happened, right? That so beyond this, that the fourfold division, the Chatur Varna, the outcast, they were called outcasts, Chandalas, Dalits, especially in the Gupta periods, you come to know. They were not, brought under this category. So the officiating priests for the kings, the Brahmanas, of course, Kshatriyas, warriors, ruling class, Vaishyas, mercantile community, Shudras, who do all those polluting occupation, menial jobs. This categorization, this hierarchy, that in Indian society, of course, the community that has happened in the past, in the ancient society, based on the notion called purity and pollution. By birth, you are said to be pure or impure. Purity and pollution is the notion. Otherwise, called one opposing another. Purity, pollution. Yes or no. Purity, pollution. It's called binary opposition principle. That's what Louis Dumont says. Purity and pollution. By birth, you are said to be pure or impure. It is that way. So each and every category has got its own, that hereditary occupation, that endogamous practice, the taboo you say, the taboo, you are prohibited from doing certain actions, food taboo, vessel taboo, connubial taboo, commensal taboo, social distance. It is very fortunate if you are born in top hierarchy. If you are born in bottom, oppression, suppression, social distance, you might be aware. So this system, well in Indian context. That's why I'm giving this example. So social stratification in India. So this is about caste system. Like that, you got various forms of, the social stratification mechanisms in different time periods of the history in different parts of the world, spatially, temporally. You say slavery, that you say estate system, caste system, class system. It is that way. You understand? This is clear-cut example. It is all about that. You know that, let me recall the process once again. Social stratification is otherwise socially created inequality plus ranking. Sir, the ranking one above another, above, below, hierarchy, gradation, privileges, disprivileges, based on a particular criteria. The caste system is based on the criteria purity, pollution, the social inequality, socially created inequality. Because naturally you don't have, that naturally if you speak, that even today it is a dream. You don't have, practically speaking, egalitarian society. Even Mahatma Gandhi spoke about egalitarian society, dreamed of egalitarian society. Karl Marx also dreamed of egalitarian society. The establishment of classless communist society is the political goal of Marxism. Even Mahatma Gandhi dreamed of egalitarian society. That's what the great people think alike. But Karl Marx chose, that of course the radical revolution where violence is not ruled out. But Mahatma Gandhi chose the path of, that ahimsa, satyagraha. That's different. The paths are different, destination same. Even today, it's a dream. What I say, egalitarian society where everything is for everyone. All resources are equally accessible to all members of society. Is it happening now? Even today, it is a dream because you talk about social inequality getting widened because of globalization. The rich gets richer, poor gets poorer. You might be aware. Even government, they're trying very hard to arrest this inequality. In spite of that, the challenges, it's not free from challenges. That we are going to discuss everything. You understand what I'm talking about? It is that way. So, ladies and gentlemen, that. So, but the egalitarian society, the society which treats everybody equal, otherwise all resources are equally accessible to all members of society. Even today, it is a dream. It's not practical. What is in practice? You got socially created inequalities, society with social inequality. Accordingly gradation, accordingly hierarchy, accordingly privileges, accordingly disprivileges. That's why government comes to rescue the socialistic pattern, welfare nation notion, through reservation, through constitutional provisions, through inclusive governance, through protecting weaker section and minorities, Dalit, downtrodden people, women, children, through various schemes, policies, welfare schemes. To arrest the gap, to reduce the gap, so that there comes, social establishment of social justice. Otherwise, you might be aware. So, you link with that. It is why it's because of the socially created inequality that is quite dangerous. When the society with full of social inequalities, ups and downs, what will happen? The people, feeling, relatively deprived, oppressed, suppressed, that you can't, that stop them for long. They become intolerant. Over the days, they may try to, that ultimately attack, as happened during, French Revolution. That resulted in change of, monarchy into, the democracy, right? How long? Democracy rejection leads to isolation. That isolation leads to social exclusion. This excluded people, they will go for, ultimately forming movements, social movements. There comes protest, agitation, and they will go against law and order. And that affects the peace of the nation or peace of the society. When there is no peace, that no prosperity, no economic development, then you can't meet, that the basic needs of the people. There won't be happiness on the part of the people. Ladies and gentlemen, we are talking all these things. Of course, you understand the social stratification as a mechanism, as a process which is universal in all societies you witness. That's why social stratification as a process is universal. But what is that? Socially constructed, socially created inequalities with ranking. Clear-cut example, you can understand Indian caste system. I'm just showing the model here. In paper 2, we will be elaborating this particular unit, social stratification and mobility, belonging to your paper 1. That's what I'm going to link with the syllabus. So, social stratification is defined as the division of society in a hierarchical order on the basis of social values. Maybe a particular criteria you take into account. Right? It is that way. The age, gender, caste, class, race even, you talk about. So, social stratification use universal mechanism we are going to establish. I think you got some ideas now. Let me take you to the next level. It is relevant. Of course, that the very relevance we have to speak. That in 2019, you just see 4 questions I say. 300 words in the sense, 20 marks. 30 plus 1, 50 marks from this unit. That too, Davis Moore, Kingsley Davis and Wilbert E. Moore made it clear that the social stratification is a functional necessity. You have to stratify people. There is a saying. It's not a saying, it's a kural. That Tirukural, you might be aware. The Prime Minister Modi ji, taking much efforts to spread this, Tirukural of Tiruvalluvar, you might be aware. Even various places, wherever he goes, he uses because he understood the importance. That's, the greatest philosophy part of that Tirukural, even it became part and parcel of Niti Ayog vision document also, you might be aware. So one of the Tirukurals, 1,330 kurals. I try to touch every day, spread information about Tirukural every week once. Please reach my social network to get the taste. Of course, the kural I appreciate. I'm just spreading, you can get. Now, for this particular topic, social stratification, there is a kural, equivalent kural. Idanai, idanal, ivan mudikum, endraraindu, adanai, avan kan vidal. There is a kural in Tamil. I'm going to translate, don't worry. Everything what I speak, I will translate you so that you never go with empty hands. It talks about management by delegation. If you want to run the management, you need the people with expertise. How do you recognize people with expertise? And for that, you go for recruitment mechanism. In that recruitment mechanism, you categorize people. Ultimately, you see the inherent potential of each and every worker. Then accordingly, you delegate job. You divide the whole job. That's called division of labor. Then you go for delegation. So for that, you have to make layering in the people. You categorize people, you stratify people according to their own inherent potential. And you start training them also. Then you place them. That's what happening in the IT world, corporate MNCs everywhere, right? So that is what the purpose, effective role allocation and performance, for which you need this social stratification. You have to make layering. Don't say, I don't like to split. Nothing wrong. This is purpose is different. End justifies the means. The purpose, then only that division of labor, the delegation according to one's own potential, that you delegate, then that leads to specialization, that maximizes the productivity, that increases the fantastic outcome. You have to understand the purpose. So social stratification is necessary. It is a necessity, right? The effective role allocation and performance, then only it can be done. It is that way, that, and it is also unconscious device. It is something, that what is good, that you are not very conscious, but it becomes unconscious. It becomes part of life also, right? Because it's not, that the conscious creation from time immemorial, you got the mechanism. That's what we are talking about. It is universal. Of course, this question centered around it. This is belonging to structural functionalism school, and we are going to elaborate. Sociological view on middle class. Of course, we are talking about, of course, by 2030, there will be, 50 crores of, Indians belonging to this middle class. Already, 35 crores people are talking about with purchasing power. You might be able. They are not owners. They are not, poor people also. They got managerial skills. The white collar jobs, that people call it. But, of course, blue collar, they can be called that way. The blue collar is working class, white collar can be. That will be appropriate in Indian context. Even American context, we are talking about, the expertise. The Sundar Pichai and all middle class. But Sundar Pichai, when he comes and, that opens what company here with his so-called, that 1,200 crores he earns, 1,400 crores he earns per year as share. And he becomes, that entrepreneur, that leader here. He will be part of that house. That's totally different scenario. The middle class, it's a force in India. Even today, the new POTUS, the president of United States of America, who says the middle class is the backbone of, American administration. I will take care of middle class. That's the thing. He makes statement. Because, recently Hillary Rodham Clinton, that made the statement, against Trump, the COVID situation because of maladministration of the Trumpism, that they pushed 8 crore population into poverty. She accused. Of course, the outcome, the Joe Biden says the backbone of American administration, of course, middle class people. Why in US, even in India? Why 35 crores of population out of 1.35 billion? You just imagine. By 2030, it's going to be, the 50 crores in the sense you just see. You got purchasing power, the days they never give up the past, and they also, they parallelly embrace the future also. They are at the crossroads, you might be able, with purchasing power. And the very, the size of, the consumerism is more. The Indian market is completely because of the middle class market with purchasing power. All developed countries are eyeing to launch a particular product, towards this middle class only. You might be aware, it is because of that. We are talking about sociological review. I've got, that, and I'm just giving brief. I'm not elaborating here. You will come to know, because, the answers are there. Of course, the fetishism of commodities. What happened in the exploitative capitalistic society, according to Karl Marx, people started worshipping the commodity. That you go and worship in front of, that Lord Perumal. Otherwise, you enter into contract with Lord Perumal, Venkateshwara, that you make him partner. There is a deal. I know this Coimbatore area, they begin the account in the very Tirumala temple itself, the industrial account. And whatever share comes, I will give portion of it. There is people enter into agreement with, God. That is the belief system. So the business grows. There is an opinion. So what happens, that you pray God, in front of the God to get more money. I'll give you share. You made him partner. I'm not criticizing. I'm not making mockery. The belief system happening even today, well. No, that Reliance everybody, that's why the Lord becoming rich. The people are getting poverish, but Lord becoming rich. I'm not against God, but let's observe this. I'm a sociologist. I'm speaking from sociological point of view, objective study. Right. What happened? You worship, in the name of worshipping God, you worship the God for the money. In the name of worshipping God, why you worship God? You want more money. Sometimes people worship God, to get Rolls Royce. Maybe you were, maybe when you were young, you would have prayed God that you need immediate laptop or smartphone, iPhone, whatever, maybe as a young kid. By as a grown up, right, you want, a big corporate MNC, maybe one Rolls Royce, maybe you want to have your own chartered flight, and you want to have your own separate islands in the Caribbean islands, maybe as our politicians, or maybe some four floors, the Burj Khalifa, like our ministers, that the corrupt money invested in Dubai, you might be aware. Maybe you fall in that line. Maybe want to travel in the path of, making the banks bankrupt. Maybe Vijay Mallya, Nirav Modi. I'm giving very bad examples. You can also earn, that by working hard, working smart with your team, that you can become industrialist and you can achieve everything by right means. Okay, don't travel that path. One day find money, that you're going to see, probably you may be the secretary signing that arrest warrant, that as a home secretary, and you will be implementing the process. All those ministers will be brought behind the bars. Otherwise, by the time they are no more, well. So they worship, otherwise people worship, that started worshiping commodity, either money, either consumer durables or automobiles. Oh my God, bless me with Rolls Royce, that tendency. So the commodity, so it's almost like you see God in a particular product, a fetish, a plant or animal, a thing is worshipped here as if a god that you do. Even recently we celebrated, the Navaratri, Lakshmi Puja, Saraswati, Thanksgiving. You all, that the products, including I'm sitting in front of my laptop now. We also put bundi on the day. What that? Thanksgiving. You worship the product because you supported me. That so Lakshmi Puja, Ayuda Puja, part of Hinduism. Of course, I don't know what's happening in the Islam and Christianity. That if if through your friends you come to know about this, you worship, that commodity like God. There is a saying in Tamil, Kasedan Kadavulappa Kadavulukum Terimappa, the Marxism. So you worship money as a god. It is that way. Of course, so this is what Karl Marx says in the exploitative capitalistic society. The commodity fetishism. The people worship commodity as a god. The consumer durables, automobiles as god. Is giving emphasis on materialistic principle. Materialism is the core principle, according to Marxism. That is what the point. The people, in the name of worshipping, that the product as a commodity, the product or commodity as a god, they forget the very human being. That leads to alienation. That leads to self-estrangement on the part of workers. This is what, of course, what is the Marxist concept of that fetishism of commodities? People started worshipping commodity like God in that path. That they started the giving least importance to the very humanity. Otherwise, the people are getting that exploited. That leads to alienation. Where you see the context, this is Karl Marx stratification of polarization of classes. That exploitation leads to alienation. Where the conflict school of thought. Of course, compare and contrast the very contributions of the Karl Marx, Max Weber, both belonging to conflict school of thought. When Karl Marx addressing, of course, both are, they're agreeing one common point, the ownership. People are getting stratified because of their ownership over economic resources. Accordingly, social classes, haves, have-nots, rich, poor. So there, Karl Marx and Max Weber, they share the common platform. They belong to conflict school of thought. But there comes, difference of opinion. Max Weber has got his own difference with Karl Marx. How? When Karl Marx was talking about mere social class, Max Weber talks about, that social status. He talks about life chances, lifestyles, and also, that the party, social power, class status party we are talking about. So, that when Karl Marx was talking about addressing only economic dimension, Max Weber also adding social dimension and political dimension. The very economic dimensions of the Karl Marx. So that's why social classes, social status, social party. Collectivity of people enjoying similar relationship with the production sphere. So all Rolls Royce club, all Mercedes Benz club. You got, that youngsters, the Enfield, Royal Enfield club, they have two-wheelers. They go for long distance drive. It is that way, the club we are talking about. Cosmopolitan club, lifestyle. That way, it is not what money you have, the ownership over resources. With that, are you capable of influencing the market situation? You may be wanting, that your account in Switzerland or whatever may be, but will you be respected in the market? How extent you are respected? Even, the very, very celebrities, of course, we are talking about. The very respect they command, an industrialist may not be commanding. You might be aware. Even the political class, that the respect they command, the very industrialist ownership over economic resources, they may not be commanding. You might be aware. So it is that way. Lifestyle, are you capable of influencing the market situation, the life chances? There comes status. When Karl Marx talks about social class, he talks about status, social status, and also party in power, the political status we are talking about. So there we are talking about the difference, that on social stratification, especially in capitalistic society, right? It is that way. Maybe that a big billionaire, maybe simple, humble person, but market will not respect you. Market respects only people like Nirav Modi, Vijay Mallya, flamboyant, extravagant people. If you're humble, they'll be saying, nah, reject that guy. Because people wanted that. You have to show off. They're called novice rich. Conspicuous consumption. People consume, the products not for the consumption purpose, rather for showy reasons, for display reasons. That is what Max Weber mentioned. That the lifestyle, life chance, by simply seeing, that the attire of, that's what Netflix you would have watched, that billionaires, bad billionaires in India. You please, when you find time, you please watch that. By seeing his attire, that the way with which he speaks, though he is bankrupt in his business, he was given loans by political pressure and nepotism, corruption, favoritism. The very, of course, don't judge a book by its cover. People say, all that glitters is not gold. Of course, you come to know, ladies and gentlemen, it is that way we are talking about, that there you come to know the comparison. See the tendency, you are asked to compare within, the conflict school of thought. That is the recent trend I'm talking about. When you talk about thinkers, within a particular perspective, 2 to 3 people, that they'll give you, ask you to compare. That demands your clarity. That demands your, a lot of questions like that. This is the trend you witness in questions. See, you understand. And what is the difference between, of course, that one more person, Nidhi Chaudhary. Yeah, very good evening and welcome to Unacademy. I'm sorry, ma, because well, this is English medium. I can understand, that you are Hindi. You can type your questions in Hindi. I'll answer, but I can't, that very fluently speak. I can speak only survival Hindi, but that should not compromise my, subject matter here. This is pure English medium. And that, of course, if you're in English medium, you please try to follow. And you can re-watch the videos once again, of course. And you type your questions in Hindi, I will try to answer. Of course, that I can do. Hindi in the sense, that English typing, your Hindi words. Of course, you understand. Okay, that will take some more, that will take, I was about to speak fluently, I came back. What is the difference between natural and social inequality? We are talking about natural and social inequality. Natural inequality, that's totally different. That the gender, the race, the age based, that natural inequality, you can't do anything, you can't help it. But socially created inequality, of course, based on caste system, purity, pollution notion, socially constructed, even the estate system. Society is responsible for making that inequalities. So people suffer and people feel privileged. That won't long last because it's a flaw on the part of the system. There is no social justice in it. That's why that the revolution happens. You might be aware. So the difference between natural, we are not talking about naturally created inequalities. We are talking about socially constructed, socially created inequalities, and people got affected. The very caste system is clear cut. That's why the political, that all those protests, everything, and all political leaders, they want to capture the power. That using this historical mistakes or blunders, what we are talking about, right? It is that way, that emotionally arousing people, and especially, that, all those things, that, but there comes their own justification. They got suppressed, they want to retaliate, an eye for an eye will make the whole world blind, we say. But of course, that, but whatever may be, that, let us see, that, so everything, that you can fool some people for some time, some people for all the time, not all the people all the time. Ladies and gentlemen, the truth alone triumphs, of course, So the intention, the motive behind it, we question ultimately. The timings also. Give examples from caste and class dimension. We are talking about, the class, caste, all socially created inequalities. This is purity, pollution notion, but this is based on economic ownership, might be aware. So Karl Marx talking about polarization of classes, haves, have-nots. Capitalists, that working class, bourgeois, proletariats, or landlords, that tillers of the soil. It is that way, that Whereas caste system, you might be aware, the hierarchy, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, based on pollution. But even the very class, according to Karl Marx, maybe, polarization of classes like North Pole, South Pole, he spoke about haves, have-nots, simplistic model. He recognized middle class, but according to him, according to Karl Marx, the middle class will not survive for long. But whereas, the people criticize Karl Marx, even the very Max Weber said, that no, the middle class will stay. Max Weber was very right. That's what you see in America and India also. The expanding middle class, where he talks about 4 divisions, part of middle class. Property, the upper class, propertyless white collar workers, petty bourgeois, manual working class, that and all. Even Lloyd Warner talking about, that the 6 types of, the classification. You come to know everything, don't worry. So it is that way in the context, you to understand the question I'm just touching, but I'm going to elaborate answers, don't worry. You have to at least understand the question. That's what the idea. So the idea, when you know the how questions are asked, you become directed, you're focused, you become result oriented. That is the basic expectation out of you. Not to answer in front of me, because after class you can go through reference materials also. After that, you try to write answer. If you get difficult, you can come back and type your answer. I'm sorry, Nidhi Chowdhury, this is pure sheer English medium. If you're very particular, go for bilingual part of that Unacademy, where you got that even that he English classes in Hindi also, that some of the educators are speaking, probably that may help you. This is pure English medium, and you understand. You try, if you're English medium, this methodology is relevant to you, because you're going to write all these the keywords that you have to hear in terms of English, and the very pronunciation when we speak, that in an interview also it's highly useful, well, right? It is that way. So the next question, elucidate the basic premises of, once again, the structural functional theory is getting repeated of social stratification. How far it is relevant in understanding the contemporary Indian society, we are going to, that evaluate. So structural functional theory is all about society as a system, as which has got, that order. Anything which promotes order is functional. Anything which weakens the already existing social order, you call dysfunctional. In Indian, that the contemporary Indian society, whether the stratification, what we have done, that you talk about maybe upper class, middle class, lower class, or even the ruralized nature, the caste system, that is it functional? Caste system is dysfunctional. Caste system may be functional for politicians, identity politics, influencing the voting behavior of the people in the name of caste. Like, identity politics is all about using caste, language, region, son of the soil theory, or even religion, or even race. That's what happened in US election. So that anti-racism, of course, Trumpism, his racist policy brought him down, you might be aware, apart from his maladministration. The theory we're talking about, it is that identity politics. So caste system may be functional for politicians, dysfunctional for people, because that, and caste is getting diluted also parallelly, because of various factors like migration, advanced industrialization, that अब हिंदी में नहीं पता थे. Of course, the Gaurav Sharma. Gaurav Sharma, yeah, I think that. Of course, that थोड़ा थोड़ा मालूम है. सब कुछ हिंदी नहीं मालूम है. Of course, that it's English medium course here. Hope you can. You type your question in English, Hindi man. I will answer all your questions. Don't worry. Right? It's not a question about knowing or not knowing. It is not a language class. It is sociology class, English medium. Of course, ladies and gentlemen, the necessity is mother of invention. Right? So come back. Right? It is that way we are talking about, and examine gender, ethnicity. What is the difference between sex and gender? Sex, you address mere physical attributes, but when you add social dimension, feminine, masculine, it becomes that gender, you might be aware. So ethnicity is also has got explanation, race plus culture. Race, a pure biological category, you might be aware, that a race, when you say that maybe based on your complexion, the cephalic index we call, and also the thick lips and wavy hair, the body stature, that all those the mongoloids, you talk about that negroids, caucasoids, major division, then also you go for subdivision. But when you add this is pure biological category, but when you add cultural dimension to that race, maybe language is the vehicle of the culture. Sri Lankan ethnic issue, because where the fight is between Sinhalese community and Tamil community of Sri Lanka. Ethnicity, when you say the race plus culture, because language is the vehicle of the culture. When you add race, with cultural dimension, biological dimension with cultural or social dimension, it becomes ethnicity. Race plus culture is called ethnicity. Might be aware. It is that way we are talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. So you understand the gender, ethnicity, race as major dimensions or the forms of social stratification. We say social stratification is universal. Only the criteria differs from society to society, spatially, temporally. It is that way. See the question. And education is a major source of social mobility. Of course, there are various factors, responsible for, that making the people to move above in the ladder. That movement of people from one stratum to another. Vertical mobility you're talking about. Education plays important role, important instrument of social change. That gives you awareness, that education makes you stand on your own, and that talks about opportunities and employment. Ultimately, that employability, it's not mere employment, employability, then you get employment, ultimately purchasing power, and you participate in the economy, and you become role model. So that ultimately, that no doubt, that you have to justify that in the contemporary society. So the all open society where you see the important role played by education. The closed society may be the rigid society, closed society influenced by caste system, where you don't find that much of social mobility, you might be able. So this is relevant to that way. I'm not elaborating answer, I'm just giving brief. And also that evaluate if social stratification is functional. Of course it is functional, it is also dysfunctional to some extent. What happens, right, that we talk about, but according to social stratification it is functional. That's what that effective role allocation and performance. There comes Melvin M. Tumin to criticize especially the Davis and Kingsley Davis and Wilbert E. Moore belonging to the structural functionalism theory. You're going to see that. What is social mobility and major sources and causes. That's what we spoke. That the technology, migration, transport, communication. That all those things ultimately. The industrialization, urbanization. You call everything, and the sources we are talking about. The sources and causes. Internal sources, external sources. We are going to discuss. And social mobility is social mobility is possible. The closed system of stratification. Maybe you address in Indian context the caste system. Of course, it is possible. That there comes ultimately M.N. Srinivas, who spoke about Sanskritization, Westernization. Sanskritization offers, that talks about movement of people from one stratum to another. Lower caste people imitating the lifestyles of upper caste people. This particular phenomenon he witnessed in Mysore. The people living in the Agraharam, the non-Brahmins, they also started, that imitating the lifestyles of Brahmins, like learning, Carnatic music, or going for betel nut practice, or giving up non-vegetarian items. All those things ultimately, maybe becoming more pious. It is that way, whatever may be, that particular thing, Sanskritization. The Sanskrit happened to be the language of, the Brahmins. But later, that earlier he was, that he labeled as Brahmanization. Later he called, the Sanskritization. But in some parts of India, the reverse also happened. Kshatriyization, tribalization, Islamization. Islamization happened in Punjab. When I was in Jammu, I could witness, right, the dominant culture happened to be, that the Muslims, that they're, the Punjabs, that imitated the lifestyles of Islamization. In some places, Dalits, that becoming role model. You might be aware, it is that way. So, that there are different models of whatever may be. It talks about the change, but it's not giving, that a change in culture, not giving change in structure. It's not like modernization, right? It is mere positional change. So social mobility is possible definitely even in the closed system like Indian caste system, like through Sanskritization. Westernization, you ape the West. We tasted Westernization because of British 150 years rule of British rule here. You might be aware. So and also that the various research works that we are touching, of course. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. I think it is right time. You know how the questions are asked to this particular unit. Now you understand how the questions are asked. Now you have to search for answers. I think I sit. The stage is set for you now. Thank you so much, Gaurav Sharma, for the great understanding, of course. And thank you, Nidhi, parallelly. Right, ladies and gentlemen, of course, right, that this is what the syllabus prescribed by the very UPSC, part of your paper 1, social stratification and mobility. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, the concepts equality, egalitarian society, maybe inequality, natural inequality, social inequality, accordingly gradation, hierarchy, exclusion, that how people are, rejected or excluded. And of course, the poverty, it's not lack of resources or absence of resources, but something which is meant for you has been blocked by someone, by exploitation. The people are poor not because of the absence of resources or lack of resources. The resources meant for you has been blocked by someone. You've been exploited. You've been relatively deprived. That's why you are poor. Let me say, this is very important. What happened, right? You just imagine, two workers of Reliance Industries. Let me be very frank. Come on, so what? Two workers. One worker going to another worker's family. Ultimately, that and friends, comrades. They are working together. So and ultimately, what happens? That he's asking, "How are you? How is your family? Right? Where are your kids?" He's asking. He's referring, his own kids. Come on, Mukesh, Anil, Idra. The uncle has come. Come on, come and talk to him. Whatever maybe. So you named your kids, after our boss. Maybe they are working in Reliance company. Mukesh, Anil. And in today's context, they won't name Anil, well. Maybe Neeta Ambani, right? Stuff. Or maybe Adani. Oh my God. So what happens, right? Okay, because, then ultimately another worker who named the kids, like Mukesh, Anil, he started, yeah. He started justifying it is because of the owners, that I came with cycle to this city. Today I've got, car, good home, lifestyle, everything. It's because of that company, because of our owners, because of the management. That's why, as a token of, that gratitude, I named my kids. So another comrade started talking, you guy, what salary you get? Yeah, I get some, maybe 1 lakh you get. Okay, cool. How much you contribute for the company every month? Probably you contribute some 30 lakhs, 50 lakhs for your input. At least you should have been given 3 lakhs. You are given mere 1 lakh, but contribute to the company by your effort, application, expertise, whatever may be, 30 lakhs. But forget about 30 lakhs, maybe 10 lakhs you contribute. That's what the yardstick corporate world. Only when you earn 10 lakhs, that you will be given 1 lakh. In the IT world also, we see that, ratio. This you should be given, the 2 lakhs. You're paid only 1 lakh. The remaining amount that goes to the pocket of Ambani as a profit. This is what called theory of surplus value. What you in a production system, what you contribute and what you get back in return. You contribute to the tune of 10 lakhs. You get back only 1 lakh as sell. This 9 lakh goes to the pocket of the owners as profit. Production. So what it says, what you contribute more. What you contribute and what you get back in return. Very slim. The difference being appropriated by the capitalist as a what theory of surplus value. And the comrade explains, that you have been subjected to the exploitation. That's what we trade unions, that we are entering into dialogue with management, but that's not happening there. So at least you should be given 2 lakh, if not 1.5 lakh. What happens? You get 6 lakhs rupees per annum more. Justifies everything. So what car you have, maybe you say, you got only Swift car. Probably if you have been given 2 lakhs per month or 1.5 lakh, at least you can go in Honda City. Some Skoda Superb, whatever may be. The luxury car, next level you would have gone. And even out of what you get 1 lakh, 50% you consume in the name of taxation. You get mere, that remaining 50,000 rupees only because you got, that ultimately income tax, GST, even TDS done. You got property tax here and maintenance, everything. And you have to take care of your, hospital. It's not like Western developed countries like where you got social security mechanism and you have to spend over the kids' education and you got hospital. What happens? What you save? Nothing. This you are poor in spite of earning 1 lakh. It is because of something which is meant for you has been blocked by someone, the very capitalist. Poverty is not because of the absence of resources. Poverty is because of the resources meant for you has been blocked by someone else. You feel relatively deprived from enjoying the very resources, maybe by government, maybe by your corporates. These comrades, that once they make, that once that guy making this another comrade understanding this, exploitative phenomenon on the part of the capitalist society, the next day, that he changes the names of, his own kids. I don't want those exploiters' names to my kids. That guy applies, gazetteer, changes name. That's a different story. Do you understand? The poverty is, that ultimately what happened. So all other comrades understanding this process, they come together, they go for revolution ultimately. That is what the establishment of classless communist society, the trade union movements, they're bargaining, all the stories. In Kerala, that's why that industry is not happening because strong trade union movements you might be. They are well aware people, well, right? So that the poverty is not because of the lack of resources, absence of the resources, but the resources meant for you has been that deprived from reaching you. You feel relatively deprived. This notion I'm talking about, just elaboration. Of course, the theories of stratification we spoke, structural functional theory, conflict school, of course, where you speak both Marxist theory, Weberian theory, various forms of social stratification. Of course, you call class, status, gender, ethnicity, of course, race, and even social mobility, movement of people from one stratum to another. When it is allowing, it's called open society. When it is not allowing, it's called closed system or rigid system. So the types of mobility may be vertical, horizontal, maybe upward, downward, intergenerational, intragenerational, and various sources and causes for the mobility. See, you have seen the questions, the syllabus also. Ladies and gentlemen, now it is the right time. Let me take you to the next level. Of course, give me 1 second. You watch meanwhile the diagrams there. Yes, yes. We speak about egalitarian society. Egalitarian society, even Tamil, there is a saying, Gandhi Kanda Samadharma Samadayam. It is egalitarian society is a society where everything is for everyone. All resources are equally accessible to all members of society. Do you think that is realistic? Even today, it is a dream. Mahatma Gandhi, Karl Marx, both dreamed of egalitarian society, though the tools are different, paths are different, but destination same. But even today, it is a dream. Why? What do you have in practice? The socially created, socially constructed inequalities. You see, a guy traveling in Mercedes Benz C class, C class or E class? Yeah, of course, C class. And that another guy is begging. You would have watched movie Shivaji the Boss. That cool. This is Chennai. Yeah, yeah, Singara Chennai. That ultimately. But meanwhile, there comes one beggar lady ultimately. Yeah, oh, everything gone out of Chennai, but it is yet to go. You would have seen the movies, the widening social inequality. Of course, on the one side you got people for transportation using that Mercedes Benz, the beggars that on the roadside. It's a shame on us, right? We're talking about. But of course, there is a mafia behind it. That's different story. That's social issue. You got ministry to tackle also. Huh? We talk about that's different scenario. It's not a we have to feel bad. Of course, those people are taking steps. The mafia with the support of politics. A lot of movies also based on that. See, on the one side, you see how the Nariman point. Of course, Mumbai. See the Asia's largest slum, Dharavi. See the inequality. When Mukesh Ambani was once advised by Ratan Tata, yeah, like country where you got this much of inequalities, and that too close to that facing Dharavi, you should not have like that many stories. The building, so you were lavish, rich. There is that even how humble Ratan Tata you might be aware. Yes, that's the difference between industrialist on the one hand, business people on the other hand. Vyapar, that may industrialist whom wo ye vyapari hai. That is a statement made by this Gaurav Sharma and Chaudhary. That Ratan Tata people like industrialists, and there are whereas the Reliance people are business people. Might be aware. There comes difference, Right. We are talking about the inequalities. You see, also the kids, they're trying to peep in through. That what's happening in the next door, the lavish, celebration. They feel relatively deprived. This is what socially created inequalities. But then, what people can do, socially constructed, socially created inequalities we are talking about. Maybe the criteria differs. Accordingly, what happens, that high, low, high, low, high, low, the social gradation, hierarchy, ranking, even you call ranking, one above another, one above another, one. You talk about, that the people are discriminated accordingly, privileges, accordingly, disprivileges we are talking about. You are treated high or low. So the discrimination in practice, of course, that's why to correct all these maladies, the protective discrimination, positive discrimination, part of constitution, the reservation we are talking about, Article 15 within bracket 4, 16 within bracket 4, Article 45, 164, 275, 330, 338, 342. even fourth and fifth schedule of the Constitution, even Article 17, the 23 and 27, of course, the 28, 29, 30 we are talking about. Yes. It is that way, ladies and gentlemen, that to fix that, that discrimination in spite of that. Social exclusion, what happened, that the people getting rejected, that becomes, it's not inclusion, you exclude. In democracy, rejection leads to isolation. The rejected people, that the frustration, that they ultimately they combine together. They become victims, that there comes, common ground, they share victimization. That leads to social movements, protest movements, agitation, and under various causes. What will happen? That goes against, that law and order, peace basic. You have to understand this is not the basic concepts part of this. So what at present what you have is not, the egalitarian society, socially created inequality. We are not talking about natural inequality, the conscious creation, the construction by the very society itself, the inequalities we are talking about, and ramification. That's why, that SS, which is equal to social stratification, which is equal to third SI plus R. You understand what I'm talking? It is that way. So of course, that the poverty, just now we spoke, that the poverty, that and relative deprivation, no need of explaining. Poverty is not because of the absence of resources or lack of resources, but because of exploitation. The resources meant for you have been, the resources have been blocked by someone else. Maybe sometimes the government by heavy taxation, whatever may be. All those stuffs that leads to relative deprivation. Relative deprivation as a concept came in a book called American Soldier. That the people joined, army service in the, especially the American soldiers, simultaneously. Some people with promotion and perks, some people could not see that. There came the people felt relatively deprived. There, the very birth, according to Robert K. Merton, the very notion. Now you see the people relatively feeling deprived because of the poverty, maybe exploited resources. It is that way, that you talk about. Of course, these are all the basic key concepts without which you can never understand. Now it is time for us, that to travel to, that the various theories, that the major theories, otherwise you call the perspectives on the part of sociology. One, structural functionalism. Another one is conflict school of thought. The structural functionalism theory, where we talk about Kingsley Davis and Wilbert E. Moore. We are talking about belonging to this particular, the structural functionalism school of thought. Ladies and gentlemen, according to them, stratification exists in every known human society. That's what we said in the beginning. Social stratification is universal. No society is free from social stratification. No society is unstratified. In the same spirit, statements are different. Even Ratan Tata says, why am I speaking Ratan Tata? Come on. Only when the ECG shows ups and downs, you are alive. When the ECG shows a straight line, you are no more. Like DC line. Right? You understand? Huh? So, that inequality, that ups and downs, conflict and cooperation, hallmarks of society. In the same way, social inequality is part of the society. Because stratification is part of the society. Socially constructed inequality is part of the society. And also that can be traced with individual makeup of every human being, psychological makeup of every human being to be different from others. Because every individual is unique. When you can talk about equality, then you can speak about equity, not equality. Everyone is unique. That is the sense, psychological makeup, to be different from others. And also, the very thing. That's why, no society is free from social stratification. This talks about the conscious attempt on the part of the society, the social construction, socially created inequalities we are talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, it is that way, of course, right? What is this? Social stratification is universal. All social system shares certain functional prerequisites. If you want to ensure the survival of the society, you have to meet some basic needs. Of course, Nandan Nilekani says, roti, kapda, makhan. Then you move to bijli, sadak, pani. Right? Huh? Unna, unavu, udukka, udai, irukka idam. Food, cloth, shelter. Of course, you talk functional prerequisites. You want to ensure the survival of the system. There are some functional prerequisites, they have to be met. Even the Talcott person is talking about that. The agile model, especially Talcott person says agile model, adaptation, goal attainment, integration, latency, and tension management. Of course, where he says the functional prerequisite. If you want to ensure the survival of the society, you should meet all these, that prerequisites: adaptation, goal attainment, integration, latency, according to Talcott person. But here, the structural functionalism theory, of course, we are talking about under Kingsley Davis and Wilbert E. Moore. All social system share certain, this, of course, the social stratification is one of the functional prerequisites, without which you can never go for effective role allocation and performance. You go for stratification, you divide the society, division of labor, not divide and rule, division of labor, that leads to specialization, that maximizes the productivity. As I said, திருக்குறள், இதனை இதனால் இவன் முடிக்கும் என்றாராய்ந்து அதனை அவன் கண் விடல். Otherwise you go for that management by delegation. Otherwise, that is the spirit. Hope you understand. So one such prerequisite is role allocation and performance. You allot a particular job to a particular person based on his that potential or her potential, expertise. Then you expect them, you train them, and you see that through monitoring mechanism, do they perform or not, and you go for upgradation of the employability skills, enabling skills you might be aware. So one such prerequisite, the various functional prerequisites, one such prerequisite is the effective role allocation and performance. This is otherwise called division of labor. That's what the caste system in the beginning had, but unfortunately it became rigid, and that what happened you might. So this means that all roles, first they must be filled. What is role? Expected behavior of a particular status. As an individual, I've got a status. I'm your guide. I'm a teacher. That I'm your guru. I'm your guide. Let me speak this way, because I'm for your social transformation. I don't want me a knowledge selling business that you can get anywhere. The information revolution. I want to make difference. Of course, I want to be guru or guide in the sense that is my status. What what do you expect out of me? That is called role. What is my status? Static portion, guide or guru. The role, that expected behavior as a guide, as a guru. Do you inculcate value system in me? Do you transform me? I will transform you. You're ready to submit yourself. Otherwise, I will condition you so that you submit yourself. That's because the purpose end justifies means, So this means that all roles must be fulfilled, and they will be that filled by those who are best able to perform. Only able people. It is not unemployment people are talking about. Employability. Do you have skills? On the one side, industry is complaining that the lack of that sources, capable sources. On the other side, people are in the the market saying that I don't have job. What? Are you qualified? Have you enabled yourself? Have you equipped yourself? You're equipped enough, company will come to your doorstep. You're not equipped, that you have to wait for company. If you're properly already equipped, that why you are waiting for company, you would have become entrepreneur, right? It's not waiting for somebody else, that to give you opportunity. You are the leader then. So they will be filled. What is the point? They will be filled by those best able to perform them. Got the point? Now you have to identify. That is what recruitment mechanism, as UPSC does, at the prelims, mains, written interview, they recruit. It's genuine. It's not running after for job. It is, but you are here not for job, you are for career. Of course, the UPSC has got a mechanism identifying, through the progressive, the complexity, the pattern, you might be aware. So they will be filled by those able to. Do you have the potential, capability to perform as a district collector? As once you become secretary, it is identified. The necessary training, the once you go to Lal Bahadur Shastri Academy, Missouri, you are trained. Somebody, the journey of IAS, Lal Bahadur Shastri, fans, sir. Hindi में बातें बताई. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, I understand. That definitely you're going to be the leader. Of course, that this is English medium. Ladies and gentlemen, I understand. So the necessary training for them is undertaken, and the roles are that performed conscientiously. The thing is, the letter and spirit, having understood that training, of course, what you understood in the training, that you just try to implement. Of course, that you have to understand. So not only that, Davis and Moore argue that all societies that need some mechanism for ensuring effective role allocation and performance. That as you've got UPSC here, the Banking Services Recruitment Board, that IBPS, of course, that you talk about, it is that way. So the various recruitment mechanisms, even staff selection commission, that it is that way effective. That you need a mechanism, some mechanism. This mechanism is social stratification, which they see as a system which attaches unequal rewards and privileges to the possessions. You talk about the various scale of pay and the amenities, that and also the promotion, perks, everything what you're talking about, it's that way naturally. The hierarchy, accordingly privileges you talk about, even the protocol, that the prestige, it is attached with that, and the esteem you are going to add because of the occupation of the service. That's really different scenario. So that the unequal rewards, why? It is because to show the difference, the marked privileges, and accordingly to the various positions in society. Got the idea, na? The very chief minister, that forget this guy, that the very prime minister is, that different from, ordinary member of parliament, might be the unequal rewards. That of course in the protocol, in terms of, the power, that that he commands, that when compared with ordinary member of parliament, you might be aware. There unequal rewards, why? It is because of, that ultimately, that the potentials, the responsibilities, the powers attached with that, you might be aware. So you got a mechanism, it is that way. They concluded that social stratification is a device by which societies ensure that the most important positions are conscientiously filled by most qualified persons. That is what I said, that in Tirukural, effective role allocation and performance. Idanai, idanal, even mudikum. Idanai, this job, idanal, by this mean, even mudikum, this guy will do it. Endraraindu, do research. இதனை இதனால் இவன் முடிக்கும் என்றது அதனை அவன் கண்படுது. Then you allocate that particular job to this chosen guys, chosen few, that recruited few, that after training, and you talk about all these things. Of course, I translate parallel. Ladies and gentlemen, the difference in pay and prestige we are talking about, that the between occupational groups due to the functional importance. Right? You have to understand, the why prime minister has got more parts, and privileges because of the functional importance. The primus inter pares, he is the chief among equals. The Union Council of Ministers headed by the Prime Minister, might be aware. So the importance of positions. Then that out of the 544, 45 MPs, you talk about one among, that it is that way, and motivate, that it also motivates the so-called talented recruited individuals, because of this unequal the privileges or rewards attached with that. Right? Functional importance. But that varies from society to society. According to our protocol, the President of India first, that you talk about the table of precedence. That may vary. The Scandinavian countries, the teachers are, the number one protocol. They can't be arrested. And even in Japan, that it is that. So the societal attachment, that to the power, of course, that the unequal, the rewards or privileges attached with different social positions, that may vary from society to society. You might be aware. It's not fixed. That way, ladies and gentlemen, of course we are talking about. So the functional important positions are functionally unique. A particular during COVID situation, who all respected the doctors, of course, even the medical, the workers, the very, the sacrifice. We have to appreciate them. That I see, that my one the relatives, of course, that they are going to, that in spite of all this COVID crisis, the casualties they hear, they involve, they participate. That the greatest service they do, the functional important positions doing COVID situations, medical professionals, the doctors, that and supporting staffs, you have to understand. Or the degree to which other positions are dependent, that no life, of course, that no soul, no life you talk about, that it is depending on, only when you are alive, you can do a lot of things. You can think about livelihood then. It is between life and livelihood we are talking about. Given COVID situation, it is appropriate situation, to occur, that a great status to doctors and other supporting, the medical fraternity might be aware. So, for example, the highly skilled surgeon is functionally unique and hence important position that has prestigious, the pay and reward we are talking about. That I don't know, that of course, maybe for practical right means we are saying how, one counselor is making, that, well, 50 crores to 200 crores. No way it can be the corrupt money, So the society has to deal with all these corrupt guys first. Of course, then the Davis, that Kingsley Davis argued the stratification system provides, that equality of opportunity. The stratification system provides equality of opportunity and integrate the social system. Got the point now? It is that way. So that's why the stratification. Then effective role allocation and performance. Then you honor them with different privileges. You might be aware. So in contemporary Indian society, all important positions are filled. The role allocations are ensured. with competitive examination, whether you call UPSC, SSC, IBPS, whatever it may be. That it's our society, that is moving towards meritocratic society. You identify right resource for right position, able resource for that appropriate position, and you also train them in such a way. Our heading, we are heading towards that we never compromise that quality on the part of the workforce. You might be aware, in spite of the reservation, that we try to meet that particular meritocracy. You might be aware. So unequal rewards and privileges to the functionally important positions provide equality of opportunity to everyone, because that you work, you write, and you prove your mettle. Ultimately you are recruited and you are accorded that high rewards. That's totally different. So you have to accept that that guy won, got that privilege. You have to accept. There comes that acceptance on the part of the people, because the effective role allocation performance, that's based on division of labor. That is justified, be it political, social, economic. We never question that different privileges according to different people. Because why? Because it's crystal clear, the mechanism. However, Melvin M. Tumin, the criticism I spoke, right, against this, argued that social stratification can often thus act as a barrier to the motivation and recruitment of talent. It can be a barrier. That what happened, right? That because what happened, right? People, what you think about people who are not recruited, they may get frustrated, they may get demotivated. It is that way we are talking about, that. So it's a barrier, that. So stratification often does act as a barrier to the motivation and the recruitment, that this process itself sometimes, that acting as an obstacle, a barrier in the path of, that the recruitment or talent. When it becomes, more process oriented, rituals. Of course, that you may be having aspiration to serve, but the mechanism, that you don't pass the test of the mechanism, probably you may not reach there. You're talking about. So this is apparent in a closed system, such as caste, the racial stratification we are talking about. That caste and racial stratification, thus ascribed status of untouchables, prevented even the most talented, becoming Brahmins. You might be aware. That. See, the one hand, that the caste system talking about, by birth you are Brahmin. No, only by deed. You may be born Brahmin, but only by deed, that you may acquire, you may be called Brahmin. But modern day worlds, I'm saying, if that is the tendency, but a lot of Brahmins are into, that leather industry, killing cow and taking its own skin, leather industry. How come they can call themselves Brahmin? All these things are happening. The Brahmin by deed, the dharma, it is that way. So it is that way. Whatever maybe we are talking about. So this apparent, that this is apparent in a closed system of caste system and racial stratification. Thus, ascribed status of untouchables. That there may be, that we could find, that from minority community. Of course, that the very Dr. Kalam. Of course, K.R. Narayanan, Dr. Ambedkar. How to think about that. So in the name of the caste system, if you are going to that, if it is based on ascribed status, of course you block the path of that able people. You justify the status quo ante, the name of the caste system. Of course, to correct all those things, of course we talk about part of constitution, the correctional measures, reservation, you might be aware, all those things getting justified. So lower strata never have the same opportunities of higher strata. We're talking about. In spite of that, that of course, once there was, that IQ test between blacks and whites in USA, that has been disproved as a myth. You might be aware. So, that in spite of that, that they're yet to reach that level. Yet to reach, there is no level playing field. Though a lot of, it's not percolating down. Otherwise, people are, that lacking awareness, yet to come up that level. Because of the reservation, you can't say that they have reached that level. In spite of that, people are yet to come, yet to reach that level playing field. You might be aware. So the lower strata never have the same opportunities of higher strata. In spite of that, we are talking about. And that even the upper caste people are not rich people. There also 10% of reservation recently implemented. That how long you are going to punish because of the history. There came. So it is now we are talking about case specific approach. The creamy layer should be incorporated to all categories of the caste system. So it's that way. In spite of the various privileges, that the provisions, people are still suffering. The lower rung, you might be aware. So social stratification at times increases the hostility and becomes, the divisive, that for society, as seen in recent agitation for reservation. Even the medical seats reservation. Recently, Tamil Nadu government, see the way with which that, the governor, Prohit, of course, the so-called excellency, that in that what happened, he delayed the very, it's a matter of criticism. He was invited recently by Home Ministry also. I know what dose he got, I don't know. We're talking about, of course, it is that way, that the people come to the streets, it's why the perceived notion to delay the justice, justice delayed, justice denied, of course, you might be aware that it is that way. So there comes, that the pressure groups operating at the part of the government or executive or part of the political circle and influencing in such a way, scuttling the very process to not to empower the hitherto oppressed, suppressed section that may become later challenge to them for their own survival or dominance. All these things, well. It's that way. Recent agitation based, reservation based agitations, you might be aware. It's that way we are talking about, ladies and gentlemen. So to put it, let's summarize. What is that? Effective role allocation and performance is one of the functional prerequisites if you want to ensure survival of the system. That can be done through social stratification, of course, division of labor. So structural functional theory is all about social stratification is universal and social stratification is justified. It is functional to the society. That is what the meaning. That's according to Kingsley Davis and Wilbert E. Moore. And he said all important functions should be fulfilled, and they should be, that not only recruitment, and also they should be trained and they should be monitored so that they deliver, all those and unequal privileges attached with that for the functionally important positions. We spoke everything. And another theory, of course, another perspective on the part of this, the sociology, especially to look at, social stratification process from different perspective. That's called conflict school of perspective, where we've got two people of the same tradition, Karl Marx and Max Weber. Now we have to talk about Karl Marx, the founder of conflict tradition, you might be aware. The Marxist theory, various sociologists have presented their views about social stratification from different perspectives. You might be aware, this is general statement, that Marxian theory emphasizes on social relations based on control over economic resources. Those who are haves and have-nots, the ownership over economic resources. Even his, that historical materialism or dialectic materialism, where he said, primitive society, ancient society, Asiatic society, feudal society, capitalist society, it's completely based on, that economic organization or mode of production because he says infrastructure shapes superstructure. The ownership what you enjoy over economic resources accordingly your status, haves or have not. Maybe your dad would have schooled, but I don't know, I never had that opportunity because when you lose your dad at the young age, you become more proactive. But of course, that the people who become, that non-serious, after graduation or during graduation, you would have seen, that my friend's family, the dad used to scold them. You'd go to the market, try to earn 1 rupee, you will come to know what society is. The moment you enter into market and work, get 1 rupee, a guy who gives you 1 rupee becomes your owner. You get 1 rupee from that guy, you become worker. The relationship, social classes, owning class, working class. When you try to, the production sphere decides what sort of class you belong to. In social production sphere, because according to Karl Marx, production is the first historical act. Production sphere, there arises classes. Are you owning class or working class? The owning class happen to be minority, working class happen to be majority. Well. So the Marx theory, that emphasizes social relations, social classes, haves or have-nots, rich or poor, capitalist, working class, bourgeois, proletariats, everything what you talk about, landlord, serfdom, master, slave. That's primitive society. Based on the control over economic resources, ownership over economic resources decides the relationship or the classes you talk about. The production sphere decides. So according to Karl Marx, in all societies there have been two classes. As I said, like poles, North Pole, South Pole, only two classes: haves, have-nots. The haves derive power from the control over means of production. The haves derive, that the power, that how from the control over, because they control the means of production. They decide everything. So ultimately, the have-nots, the working class, they come and they contribute their labor. Ultimately, what they are paid, they are compensated by, that ultimately wages. You can't question the management because after all, they are at the whims and fancies of, the haves, the management. You might be, they question, they would be thrown out of the production. You might be aware. So haves derive the power because of their control, ownership over economic, resources or means of production. The tools, forces, that everything they have a part of mode of production. From Marxian point of view, political power is derived from economic power. All this theory, what we are talking about, that according to Karl Marx, that the very society is stratified this way: haves, have nots, ownership over economic resources. He talks about, be talking about life chances. Are you capable of influencing market situation? Not mere money. With that money, what you do? Are you commanding respect in the market? Right? It is that. So Marxian viewpoint, the political power is derived from because infrastructure, economic institution, economic infrastructure is almost like foundation of a building where you build superstructure accordingly. This is what according to Karl Marx. Your foundation decides the number of stories that can be built. The foundation, if there is strong foundation, if you're very strong in economic infrastructure, accordingly you are capable of influencing the rest of the institutions, maybe political institution, maybe educational institution, maybe religious institution. You understand what I'm talking about? Education, maybe your access to education, maybe abroad education, Oxford, Harvard, or even the so-called IAM, IITs we are talking about. Maybe the political institution, who should be MLA, MP, you decide, because maybe you may be the sponsor, lobby, corporate-driven politics, quid pro quo. You accordingly, that you give, you are given importance in your own religious circle. So infrastructure shapes superstructure. This is according to Karl Marx. Your possession, your control over economic resources, accordingly you are capable of influencing the market situation. Of course, the rest of the institution, right? The ruling class exploits the working class. The ruling class, the ownership over economic resources, the haves exploiting the have-nots. You understand what I'm talking about? So the ruling class, that of course, what is that? The controlling class, the ownership class ultimately exploits the working class, that non-owning class, otherwise they are called, you might be aware. So the production sphere, this is what production sphere, this happens to be, that owners, minority people, and happens to be, the workers, majority. According to the production sphere, there arises classes. This is working class. This is, that the capitalist owning class we are talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, the production sphere decides ultimately. So the Marxian view considers social stratification as a means through which people belonging to upper strata exploit those who placed at the, that lower one. That the social stratification, the people are stratified in such how ownership over economic resources is the criteria. Accordingly, capitalist class, working class, bourgeois, proletariat. It is in nature. It is because of this nature, because house trying to exploit the have-nots. I already justified the theory of surplus value. How workers are, they exploited the corporate environment. Because the aim of capitalism is profit. Because, of course, that we justify through welfare nation notion, part of directive principles of state policy. That's totally different scenario. But I'm talking about, we are leaning towards capitalistic society. That's why I accused corporate-driven politics. It is that way. Okay, right. So the social stratification, because of this reason, is divisive in character. Haves always trying to exploit the have-nots. Haves running after profit. They are not meant for. But given the world, the welfare nation notion, of course, that even labor reforms. Recently, government, that brought a lot of reforms. Of course, that. And also, that the minimum wages should be fixed by the state itself according to the inflation there, and also the tribunals to speed up, that the disputes on the part of, the workers with management. This is all various reforms, that labor reforms recently initiated. You might be aware. We are talking about, of course, to fix all these issues. That in Indian context, we'll be speaking more in paper 2. Now I'm talking about. So social stratification is seen this, that the division, of course, the division of labor to exploit more. Haves are already exploitative in character. This social stratification as a mechanism becomes additional tools in the hands of exploiters who exploit the working class more. Right, it is that way. So Marxian perspective gave unilinear theory of social stratification. As I said, PAF, primitive, ancient, Asiatic, feudal capitalism, unilinear theory. Because except primitive communism, in all stages, the Karl Marx talking about classes, presence of classes, the struggle between the classes, the struggle, antagonism, the conflict based on exploitation leading to one stage to another stage. In Thinkers itself, I clarified, that you please go back and watch the Thinkers video. You will get fantastic idea about Karl Marx. That almost one session we discussed about Karl Marx. You will come to know. So because, it is unilinear, evolutionary principle like, of course, that except primitive communism in all stages, economic exploitation. That exploitation conflict leads to change from one stage to another. primitive, ancient, Asiatic, feudal, capitalistic. It is that way. In capitalistic society, when exploitation is sharp and severe, there comes, that the radical revolution. Ultimately, that leads to establishment of classless communist society. That is the political goal of Marxism. You might be aware. So, Marxian perspective gave unilinear theory of social stratification. Hope you understood. This is economic dimension, the conflict school, according to Karl Marx, who is the founder of that tradition. There comes another person belonging to the same conflict tradition, but with social dimension is getting added up with that mere economic dimension. That's what Max Weber, whose contribution to, you might be aware, the bureaucracy, Protestant ethic and spirit of capitalism, well. The Weberian perspective on social stratification is based on ideas of class, status, and party. Is that he adds social dimension with economic dimension. That's what the point of difference between Max Weber on the one hand, Karl Marx on the other. Max Weber propounded that class is based on market situation of individuals' position in the market. You have money, but are you capable of influencing market situation? The life chances, that accordingly, in that sense, that you belong to high status. This is according to, Max Weber. Not ownership over economic resources is acknowledged, but with that, what you do, the life chances, lifestyles, the status, the power, are you capable of influencing the political parties? You become pressure group. In that sense, that you are powerful. It is that way. So those who share similar position, that also share similar life chances. Got the idea? As I said, that Cosmopolitan Club, the Rolls Royce Club, Mercedes Benz Club, maybe you talk of Lamborghini Club, of course, we are talking about. So the similar position, collectivity of people enjoying similar status, they come under one category. That a similar lifestyle, of course, you talk about people all people residing in villa. Yeah, there'll be more or less some homogeneity, that higher income groups, that maybe high HIG, flats, maybe for government officials. Accordingly, you talk about something upper class people, the middle class mentality, or not mental, middle class mindset you are talking about. Of course, that way, those who share similar position, the people share, that similar statuses, share similar life chances, thus constituting a class, strata, right? Strata, datum, data. Well, right, ladies and gentlemen, let me take you, of course, the very Weberian theory. According to Weber, Karl Marx said only polarization of classes, like North Pole, South Pole, only haves, have-nots. Karl Marx recognized the emergence of middle classes, but he said he was quite pessimistic. The economic exploitation, that the very middle class will not survive long, for a long time, and they will also get subsumed in the working class. That's what I say. Sundar Pichai may be having, the 1,200 rupees, 1,200 crores as shares every year in the American thing. But, in front of, when you compare with the scales of, the so-called the Buffett, the Bill Gates, and Jack Ma, even Jeff Bezos, he's working class. He belongs to working class. Maybe you think, that a middle class, of course, in front of them, he's poor only. According to Max Weber, that Max Weber says was optimistic about, the middle class. Because, Karl Marx said, upper class, lower class, haves, have-nots. Have-nots happen to be majority. Karl Marx recognized the emergence of middle class, but he said it will come and join this working class. But Max Weber totally different. This middle class will expand. That's what we are booming of middle class. That even in American society, even in India, we are talking about it. As I said, Joe Biden today said, what is that? The middle class is the backbone of American administration. I will take care. Even in India, I said, by 2030, the middle class will become, the 50 crores of population. How? The expanding middle class. That's what, the Max Weber says. And he said the classes, the present in the capitalist society, he said the expanding middle class, that too in terms of propertied upper class, propertyless white collar workers, petty bourgeois, and manual working class. That expanding middle class into 4 categories. He gone to that extent. That is the basic difference. And not only that, so Karl Marx for economic dimension, Max Weber for social dimension. He added social dimension to the very economic dimension of Karl Marx. And also when Karl Marx spoke about polarization of classes, 2 classes, Max Weber spoke about expanding middle class, that too in terms of 4 types of classes. You understand what I'm talking about? Especially the capitalist society. Yes, the Max Weber agreed. Excuse me. The Max Weber agreed with Karl Marx, about stratification on economic basis. That's what we say. Both share common platform, but Max Weber not considered and not it to be only the basis of stratification, because other social dimension, he added aspects of prestige, status, and power, party as other dimensions of social stratification. I think we spoke. It is that way, ladies and gentlemen. Let me take you to the next level. Of course, that the difference in social status leads to difference in style. The very status enjoyed by the corporate MNC president may not be enjoyed by a mere guy working as somewhere as project manager. The social status definitely difference that leads to lifestyle accordingly. That guy will be having maybe that of course E class, that Mercedes Benz, maybe lifestyle, the posh, that villa, maybe the bungalows accordingly, life settlement. But that lifestyle you may not witness with a mere project manager who gets after all some 10 lakhs per annum. Yeah, that way. So difference in social status leads to difference in lifestyles, which form an important element in social distinctiveness. Distinctiveness we are talking about of various status groups. Are you capable of influencing the market situation, lifestyle? So economic criteria, then social criteria he takes into account. So such groups may not have economic power, but due to their exclusive lifestyle and enjoy. That is why the conspicuous consumption. To match this lifestyle, these guys, earning mere 10 lakhs, they'll start spending lavishly. You go to mall, you will see that guy, he'll go for, all EMIs, that banks are also coming forward, you might be aware. So everything, Jack and Jill story, the car, EMI, that all real estate, investments, EMI, consumer durables, EMI, the lavish spending and saving nothing. The whole salary will be divided in terms of EMI. Lifestyle. To match that lifestyle, this guy is trying. That's very bad. You talk about, that the financial illiterate there. That's what we are talking about, financial literacy. So, what do you call, that literacy? The financial literacy is very, very important to be, that to lead successful life. That involves investment. So you have to spend after saving, after investing. But unfortunately, people, that after spending what that remnant, they think about that investing. That's very bad. You might be aware all those things, that. So that is why the crisis we are talking about, the middle class mindset, that they save nothing because they want to match the aspiration to match with this, that the upper status, that it is that way happens. You might be. So exclusive lifestyle here, the lifestyle, that the conspicuous consumption. Thorstein Veblen says. So consumption not for mere consumption purpose, rather for showing reason, display reason. Ultimately, you are talking about, of course, but they command respect. But guys with money, they do nothing, and when it is not benefiting the society, benefiting others, that you don't do anything, then you die. What is the use of money? There are guys not even investing in banks, because nowadays people don't that's believe banks, that when it will collapse, when the stability report of RBI is speaking, that negative also, you might be aware. What's happening in the nation. Of course, hope the government will be aware, that take actions accordingly. Of course, for example, Brahmins in India constitute status group, because why, that the lifestyle, it is that way, that the pressure group, status group, it is that way. It's not based on economic ownership, but because of that the social status, the caste hierarchy, they are still pressure group capable of that even the bureaucracy. 70% of the people happen to be that the Brahmin community, who is a pressure group, which is almost equivalent to the Jewish community in US administration. You might be aware the statistics. Even today, the so-called that the 7 decades of that independence you are talking about. In spite of that, you see maybe that. So you have to understand this. According to various reports, still capable of commanding the prestige. Even the political parties, political leaders are tried for corrupt practices. Not upper caste political leaders. They are somewhat they are coming out. But only non-Brahmin, lower caste. That the political leaders they become victims. You just go and analyze this. All political parties, these are all the scenarios, that in Indian scenario we are talking about. Of course, that the pressure group, they've got the cartel, like that the mechanism capable of protecting them from the onslaught of the government or judiciary or whatever may be. So that nexus we are talking about, it's based on research I'm talking about. Of course, various research proving that way. People may not come forward to accept or make it public, for different vote bank politics reasons. Throw away. Right. So Weber emphasized on political power as aspect of that social stratification. That now that's what happening. That now the Dalit politics. That because access to the politics, of course, that they are capable. That the political power, political bargaining today we are talking about. You think about very K.R. Narayanan, Dr. Ambedkar, and other Dalit leaders. That in different parts of India, you might be aware. Even that we talk about. That even Ram Vilas Paswan. We spoke, of course, that he's no more recent. Yeah, of course, the Mayavati, that very Anshiram Mayavati, well. Of course, we are talking about it that way. So the party arises from the nature of domination, which is present in one form or other in all societies. So this is all the social dimension. We are not mere economic dimension, but how capable you are influencing the lifestyle or market situation or commanding power society, maybe by political power, maybe by lifestyle we are talking about. So in this manner, Weber has given multidimensional theory of social stratification. When Karl Marx gave only economic dimension, the multidimensional theory of social stratification, by analytically distinguishing between economic, social, and political order of the society. This is what, of course, you had one question you would have seen the beginning itself, one question, of course, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about that way, of course, right? And various forms of social stratification. Because just now we said social stratification is universal. No society is free from social stratification. No society is unstratified. But the content remains same, but the forms, the criteria based on the stratification is implemented may vary from society to society. That may vary from time to time, temporally, place to place, spatially. Ladies and gentlemen, so we talk about, that the various dimensions of the social stratification, of course, social classes, status groups, the gender, the ethnicity, the race. Of course, we spoke, caste system, slavery, estate system, the social classes, everything. Now, hitherto we spoke very clearly, because of Karl Marx and Max Weber, you understood all these things. In spite of that, I have to address one important point because you had question, the booming, that the middle class, especially, that we are going to talk about major classes, in society, but beyond that, middle class emphasis I should give. After that, I'll be taking you to the gender, ethnicity, and race forms of social stratification. But according to Anthony Giddens, that you might be aware, he identifies, three major classes in society. He talks about, upper class. What is upper class? Which is based on ownership of the property in terms of the production sphere. They control, they own the production sphere. There comes, middle class, second class, which talks about based on the possession of educational and technical qualification. Once you become IAS officer, you belong to middle class. Got the idea now, IPS. So the possession of educational and technical, maybe doctors, engineers, the managerials, IAM, IT guys, who maybe. So technical qualification and lower are working class, menial jobs, maybe IIT, diploma graduation, and sometimes unskilled labor force, the manual labor force. So upper class, middle class, lower class. This is what Anthony Giddens, based on the production sphere and your relationship with the production sphere and what you possess. That accordingly have not, but middle class is all about the possession of technical expertise, maybe educational qualification, like that Satya Nadarla, Sundar Pichai, KV Kamath, and Indra Nooyi. Why you, me, of course, right, ladies and gentlemen, it's that way. So that the dimension of that social stratification, various forms of social stratification we are discussing. Of course, you have to understand more about Indian middle class. As I said, by 2030 it will become 50 crores. You might be understanding. According to B.B. Mishra, the sociologist, it claimed the middle class also existed in the pre-British period. It's not the outcome of the British colonization here. Pre-British period also you witness, and but during British period they became visible and they became quite prominent. They became visible and consolidated. Actually, these are all the keywords. No other go. The previous questions I shown, that it's not speaking about story. Without these keywords, that I cannot elaborate. You cannot elaborate. Must. Hope you understand. So B.B. Mishra claimed that middle class also existed in the pre-British period, but during British period they became visible and consolidated. They served as a link between people and new rulers. So that the prominence of the middle class during British administration, they were present pre-British era also. You might be aware. So they acted as even this newly educated middle class intelligentsia, that to Western educated intelligentsia, that they started working in the East India companies. You might be. There came, according to A.R. Desai, under Marxist tradition, there was a conflict between Western educated elite and the very British elite. So they in that, the conflict, they have driven away the British elite. Now they started exploiting us. That theory of exploitation, or that the conspiracy theory, that's another version of that looking at India's independence struggle. That's A.R. Desai. That you don't want the British colonization and the associated exploitation. Rather, you want to be exploited by your own people. That's what happening. The Indian underperformance. After independence. What we are talking about. Of course, something happened. It's not 100% rejecting. That all those things happen. Some are leaders and sacrifice. That it's not free from that accusation. Also, for your kind information, right? Middle class, that led movement we are talking about during British and post-British period. Middle class led movement we are talking about during British and post period. Of course, they were actually the new social movement after 1970s in the environmental standards. Of course, you talk about the Chipko movement, even Vandana Shiva, Sundarlal Bhaguguna, Baba Muralidhar Amte. You hear the various environmental movements in different parts of India. The 1970s and anti, the inflation against, that the Jayaprakash Narayanan you talk about, that even the communist movements, that one Chittaranjan Das and also the Charu Majumdar and Naxalbari movement came in India. All those stuff we are talking about. So this, that this intelligentsia, the middle class, that educated middle class, they started, that ultimately, that analyzing the exploitation by the R1, that the political parties, of course, in the name of administration. So various movements came because of those people. So they've got crucial role to play, a part of civil society. So middle class is always indicator and initiator of social change. They are the pioneers. That even the Parivartan movement, the Right to Information Act we are talking about, RTI Act. So that even Arvind Kejriwal, that Aruna Roy, that one lady IAS officer, she resigned, part of social service. A very, very fantastic lady, doing all those things, But of course, the opinion differs, perspective differs, but they would like. So the middle class is always indicator or initiator of social changes in society. The middle class is closely linked to the culture and tradition of society. That because they've got their exposure to the modern education, as well as they want to lead very decent life. Of course, they appreciate the how to say connoisseur, perfect connoisseur, appreciating the cultures and various elements of culture. It is that way. They never give up the tradition also, and also embracing the modernity. You see, and seeing the tradition, the modernity perspective also. So they stick to the values of. At the same time, they don't give up the patriarchal values, which is part of the tradition and casteism. It is still holding them back. At the same time, that reap the benefit of modern development. So that's why they are middle. In Tamil, there is a saying, Randangata. They are part of both. They are neither upper class nor lower class. They are in between. Of course, that's the point. They stick to values of patriarchy, casteism, and at the same time reap the benefits of the very modern development. Hence, the element of both modernity and tradition is found in the middle class. The element of both modernity and tradition found, that you find both modernization and traditionalization working in parallel in India. It's because of the middle class, that right, the change with continuity principle. You don't give the past, and you don't hesitate to embrace the very innovation or creativity also. That you become perfect connoisseur also. It is that way. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are talking about, of course, what is that? The middle classes are the custodian of the culture. That all civil society in the urban centric, that the patronage, the participation, various artistic elements, you might be aware. You see the highly educated, the consumerist, and also the spend money extravagance, that on recreational activities. Whether, as I told you, mall culture or the evening programs in all, that the academies, you might be, whether it is music or other, the debates, that the intellectual fora, whatever maybe, they never hesitate. It's that way, that this is according to Frank Parkin. Frank Parkin, a sociologist, mentioning that they are the custodian of culture, highly educated, consumerist, and spend money on recreational activities they enjoy. It is that way, that Andre Betail also, that advocated that middle class in India is highly differentiated. That how, as that in terms of the caste, religion, and kinship. We are talking about this middle class that varies from caste to caste, religion to religion. But whereas in Brahmin, you see once they access the letter and spirit strictly adhere to, even the non-Brahmins, of course, OBC. But it's not happening in the case of that very Dalit community who are acquired middle class. But of course, they are yet to. You see the differentiation also, even among the middle class, cutting across caste, cutting across religions. That what's happening in the case of Hinduism may not be with Islam or Christianity. What's happening at the case of Christianity may not be with Hinduism. It's that way. And also the kinship relations, the changes accordingly, the network, the middle class network, that the social network differences you talk about, that. So whatever it may be, when you talk about middle class, that you address three things, especially based on income, based on occupation, and based on the acquisition of that access to education. They're talking about, ladies and gentlemen, it is that way. I think that, let me take you to the next level. I want to give emphasis to the Indian middle class parallel. Of course, the middle class values in India are difficult to characterize because they are still in the process of formation. It is not the well established like United States of America. It is in the process of formation. That too, thanks to economic reforms, the new economic policy, the people's accessibility, to higher education, of course, social sector, and also purchasing power, and abroad education, and the remittances coming back, the boom in Indian economy, parallelly benefiting, percolating down to the people. Of course, it is in the initial stage. But of course, it is not free from the shocks of, that various recession, and demonetization, GST, now COVID crisis, that it is in the formation, but it has to acquire its own, full shape, full boom, probably when it reaches, as you say, that demographic dividend along with this, the middle class boom in India. So, right, probably, that will facilitate superpower status. That's what we believe. That no society, no country has reached, superpower status without entering into the demographic dividend, the young population with purchasing power, or even, the so-called booming of middle class. It's a bubble. You have to understand, that, and still have not acquired, that stable form. It's in the nascent stage, the beginning stage. You talk that way, ladies and gentlemen. The post, that LPG, liberalization, privatization, globalization. The post, that liberalization, privatization, globalization, what we are talking about, of course, that the middle class, it's a traditional role of becoming the agent of social. Might be aware. That liberalization, privatization, globalization, otherwise new economic policy or economic reforms, what you're talking about, post globalization. The middle class traditional role is becoming, they decide the change in Indian society, of course, community, structurally, culturally, functionally, what sort of changes we are heading towards, it's decided by this, though it is, that in the nascent stage, you might be aware. So the middle class have become, the consumerism, we spoke already, the consumerism tendency, of course, the perfect appreciation of art, culture, and, and which is known for their apathy towards, they are also parallelly called selfish people. But further, they've got definition focus. Single-minded devotion to what they do, they say. But from the societal perspective, they never come out public, they never take part in public activities, that they are more preoccupied with their own, that occupation, income, and upward mobility, rather than working for social cause. That's also, to some extent, relevant. But of course, that you can't see everything. It's becoming judgment. It has to be seen in the whole picture, right? Maybe once they reach, probably, that he or she may become a wonderful leader to pay back to the society on the day of realization. How come you can selectively, that it's a process in the making. You can't judge a person by taking few years. The holistic perspective, if you see, that probably who are you to judge first, and what parameters, who gave you authority. So don't judge a book by its cover. People are talking about, of course, but as long as they've got motive, strong intention to serve the people, maybe at present they have to be, even for civil service aspirants, I say first you have to be selfish. The next 2 years, that you have to be selfish. After becoming officer, you do service, because with power you are capable of servicing more. You're capable of making difference in the society. Now, with civil service aspirant, mere student status, what you can do? Wait for some time, equip yourself, reach power, then you can do. So if you start evaluating a guy, he's always preparing for a civil service examination, doing nothing for the society. How come? Who gave you authority? This is preclusion. It is not conclusion. It is preclusion. It is hasty conclusion. Let me say that way. So that demands. So whatever may be, I'm not speaking on behalf of the people, without social cause. Maybe they are also accused as if selfish motive when they are focused. So, they are also called as, yuppies, of course, self-seeking character. That is what individual achievement. This is what called, ethnocentrism. When all these people, the middle class, they want to grow, maybe aping the westernization or modernization, and they want that they practice ultimately the Western value system, individualism, privacy, economic achievement, everything. But here in India or Asian countries, of course, they start judging these people with motive to become, that of course, that they judge in terms of Indian value system, collectivism, what you did for the society. Of course, right. But you have to analyze from the whole. We have to see in the big picture. That's the point. Of course, we are talking about. This is that you to judge that Indian people when they are simply practicing Western model, you started judging them in terms of Indian model. The context decides what is right and wrong. Got the idea, na? So it is very natural. So first of all, don't become judgmental. That's what sociology is all about. Be objective. Accept as they are. It is not expecting how people should be, could be. The moment you start expecting, you stand, that how do you expect society to be in your own way, my way, highway. They've got their own way. That expects you to accept as they are. Don't try to dictate, that my way, highway principle. That won't work. That is what I'm talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, whoever may be, whatever may be the status, that is the point. So then later they become judgmental. They ultimately move away from value neutrality, objectivity. They become judgmental, misunderstanding, conflict, confusion, and it is ultimately putting that everybody down. All those stories. It's waste of time everywhere. So we are talking about, of course, ladies and gentlemen, social stratification refers to the way people are ranked, ordered in a society. That's what we are talking about. That so that order, that based on a particular criteria that varies from society to society. We spoke, I think, that I think, and not really, that's enough. Of course, people in the same group have similar life chances and they are conscious of their relative position in the stratification system. We are talking about that's in general. That's why the class system is formed. You might be aware. The life chances, of course, status system. The various axes of stratification along with the society is ranked. You are talking about everything. That of course middle class part is over. The middle class, booming middle class. Of course, they are in between. Well, based on income, occupation. That we decide. We spoke already. They are in between. They never give up past. Also, that they never hesitate to embrace the very modernity. Both modernization and tradition. You see how pre-British, post-British. Well, everything we spoke about. Now we have to talk about other dimensions. Of course, gender, ethnicity, and race. How they constitute important. The dimensions or forms of social stratification. We're talking about it. Gender stratification refers to social ranking. The gender, that is different from sex. We spoke. Sex, mere biological category. Gender, when you say, that adds social dimensions, masculine, feminine. So social ranking, where men typically, that inhabit the higher statuses than, that the very women. Of course, it is patriarchal character. The men are strong and women are weak. That tendency, that is, the gender stratification. It is gender injustice. Frankly speaking, women are morally more strong than men, for your kind information. Men may be physically strong, but women are more morally strong. That is naturally they are inbuilt such a way, for your kind information. But the patriarchy, male chauvinism, trying to control that women, even that in the marriage, that you have to maintain some difference. That's good for family. People say, that that. But Sachin Tendulkar may be exceptional case. We are talking about. I don't know. We have to interact with him. His experience. What I'm talking about, it is that way, ladies and gentlemen. The maturity, that it is that way. It is not one trying to control another, male or female. That spiritually speaking, they are different souls. That's all. That it has got its own karma theory, the stuff. So here, let's talk about it. That men typically inhabit higher statuses in patriarchal society than women, you might be aware. So accordingly, you talk about gender stratification. Of course, gender injustice. That's why feminism movement. That's why feminism movement. That's why, that we are talking about women empowerment. Gender is a social construct. We are talking about social. Even the Islam is identified with low status of women. Even the the very Hindu society, of course, the Vedic society, which gave enough space for women, but later it got degraded. And India, it is a peculiar thing. We go to a temple, we worship Mother Goddess. But the moment we come out of the temple, we started staring. I'm not talking about mutual consent, mutual understanding, love are totally different. I'm talking about when it is not in favor of, when you don't get that approval by another girl, that staring, that all those that I think we are talking about. That's very bad. We are talking about, so gender is a social construct, specifically, specifying socially, culturally prescribed roles for men. That this is meant for men, this is meant for women. Now that barriers, the glass ceiling effects are broken now. No, the first vice president, Kamala Harris, in the United States of America, you might be the ceiling, broken now. Of course, and this is but this is not the least. Her statement today, you might be aware, you would have watched that video. Of course, there'll be more. She becomes a role model that way. Of course, that this classification, stratification is dysfunctional to the society. This is men, this is women. No, you got Kalpana Chawla, Sunita Williams. We talk about the people part of now. That the Air Force everywhere, the leadership. Why not? That Indira Gandhi, Sushma Swaraj, even Jayalalitha. We had. We are not talking about negativity or criticism, but let's take positive. Indira Nooyi. Of course, we talk about the people. The fantastic even. That there Angela Merkel. We're talking about. Of course, that Margaret Thatcher. And Diana also sometimes, that rule. It might be, that the different parts of, that Jacinda, the New Zealand, we are talking about in different parts of the world. Women leaders, of course, they can. They're proven, that the responsibility with which they lead. Of course, that why discrimination, of course, we are talking about. So there is no fixed, that roles. So of course, we are talking about, that when you do that, when it is socially constructed in such a way, it becomes, the gender injustice we are talking about. Yes. The Kate Millett, that of course sociologists argue that the manipulative socialization leads to women not having access to many life chances as men. See, the socialization itself wrong. The male kid is sent to the good private school, the quality school. Of course, then the government you accuse that lack of infrastructure. Of course, new economic policy will fix it, I believe. And whereas that the female kids will be sent to that the discrimination we see. How male kids are treated, how female kids are treated. Female kids are, they're treated as, that burden. Male kids are treated like asset. That discrimination I witnessed. That is a mindset of, that mindset of first women. Forget about men. So that is the thing, the discrimination practice, of course. So the manipulative socialization, the socialization itself, that something gone wrong, the conditioning, that leads to women not having access to many life chances as men and being reliant on that opposite sex for income. That husbands are called breadwinners, but it's gone now. Women are also equally participating in the affairs, right? They also equally that contribute for the welfare of the family. You might be aware all attributes that leads to that less independence. That we never pay salary to our women at home. That is what according to Karl Marx exploitation. Right? If male counterpart, men enter into production sphere, they are compensated, but we don't compensate women. It is that way. This is all exploitation of women in the family. Same exploitation you witness with. Of course, we are talking about the gender related aspects. It is socially constructed gender injustice or low status of women that demands that role of the women empowerment or feminism movements. You might be aware as correctional measures. Even we talk about that the women. Daughters will have equal properties, with brothers in the Hindu undivided family. The judgments came, Supreme Court judgments, because women and children, they are highly vulnerable because of all these things, and that's why that Domestic Violence Act and the Hindu Succession Act, Inheritance Act. We talk about so many that legislations and associated the judgments by the Supreme Court, to fix all these things. Anne Oakley, of course, sociologists argued that gender roles change from society to society and can even change within a single society over a period of time. That when society becoming from tradition to modern, the role changes. And between, society, maybe in Islamic society, low status of women. Very recently, you talk about, especially one queen of, Saudi Arabia was instrumental in giving, that license to the women in Saudi Arabia. Recently, women in Saudi Arabia were given, license for driving license. Are you aware? They found what they find morning. Women can also drive. It's my criticism. It's because of that one modern, progressive, thoughtful lady. The one queen of Saudi Arabia responsible for that. I read one article. Well. So that very Islam where you find low status of women. Of course, that the gender injustice you parallelly talk about. What's happening in European society, the French society. All those things, very well. That varies from religion to religion, accordingly country to country. And even within a country, from time to time, from of course, you think about medieval India to the modern India, postmodern India, how women are liberated. And thanks to the two-wheelers, kickstart, even the kickstart movement we are talking about, that how that liberated. You no more depend on men, that for two-wheeler support, dropping somewhere. Because you kickstart, that the button press, the two-wheelers, that liberated women. from the clutches, you might be aware. Even dishwasher advertisement, the Angela, that the Meghan Markle used to, they speak about it. Well, all those stuff. The differences between men and women are as much socially as produced as they are biological. The one side, biological may be weaker, strong, you may be saying. But what about social construct? The myth, the male chauvinism, patriarchal, the society responsible for the socially created inequalities. We are talking about the gender differences. Of course, gender injustice we are talking about. So, occupational segregation, pay gap, glass ceiling, the pink color jobs, etc., are manifestation of gender stratification. That the pink is always for the female. Even boys will be speaking that way. That the pay gap, the salary, the gaps, that we, even it's not only urban area, even the rural areas. Of course, in governments you don't see that differences, but in rural area payments, that for male person, it's a different. That the salary for female. Hope it's not. But thankfully that the Mandrega is fixing it. Of course, occupational segregation, that the jobs, they themselves, segregated. The glass ceiling, a lot of limitations we are talking about. Of course, this and all, that the various, gender injustices we are talking about, of course. The men have, that higher absolute rates of mobility than women. It's because of all these things, the gender injustice, the socially constructed, created inequalities, that you receive higher rewards and are more highly paid for their qualification. That it's all those, in terms of the treatment, that in terms of the payment you talk about, that all those things we are talking about. That even that ensures mobility accordingly. It is that way. So race is also, another thing. Race, a pure biological category, another form of social stratification, is socially constructed. That difference in the society. Because we are talking about social stratification, socially created inequalities, socially constructed inequalities, accordingly ranking, hierarchy. The criteria may differ from society to society, time to time, place to place. That's what we are talking about. Accordingly, privileges, disadvantages, and and various theories. Of course, perspectives we discuss. Now we are talking about various forms of social stratification. There is gentlemen, that way. That. Oh, Iravu Vanakkam Ayya. Oh, Siddharth, Mr. Siddharth. Yeah, of course, that he says good night. Thank you. Of course, good evening. Very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, thank you, Mr. Siddharth. Right. The racial minorities, that have much less access to many important, that resources we are talking about. Racial minorities have much less access. That very well. So, that's what, that the very racism practice, how the American Civil War, that even Abraham Lincoln, that even Martin Luther King, very well what happened in the United States of America, even how the South Africa apartheid regime, they dealt with it, you might be aware, that their legs access. Of course, they struck South Africa, African National Congress, Nelson Mandela, they struck, conciliatory note. It's not like India. You've driven out, the very British people from here, our soil. But whereas, that they were accepted, they stayed back under patch of conciliation. That's different note. That's what the difference between Mahatma Gandhi here. Of course, that Indian colonization experience is different from South Africa colonization experience because they struck conciliatory note. That's totally different. For that, Nelson Mandela is appreciated. That's totally different scenario. So less access to many important resources in our society and low income and rewards discrimination in education and marketplace. That because now you may be talking about after American Civil War, Martin Luther King and various stuffs, even South Africa. But prior to that, you just imagine what sort of, that disprivileges, they would have encountered, underwent. Right. So Rolf Ellison, that Invisible Man, the book, that sociologist, of course, Helen Zia's The Asian American Dreams, that these are all clear-cut examples, where we talk about, the racial segregation, race as one of the primary lines along which our society is stratified. That race, one of the forms of social stratification. Accordingly, the valued, people are valued high, low, well, all these things we are talking about, even that the very Kamala Harris, that the new vice president of USA, she says, first black women, she said, first black women. There came, applause. So, given the fact George Floyd, racism, that influenced America, you might be aware, all those, that. Ladies and gentlemen, the Trumpism, the got Trump now. It is up, that ethnicity refers to shared membership in the cultural group they're talking about. the shared membership in the cultural group. Of course, as I said in the beginning, race plus culture you call ethnicity. Race plus culture put together called ethnicity. It is also socially constructed and has major consequences for people's life chances. You talk about, that. So it is also socially constructed. When you talk about ethnicity, you treat, that some ethnicity as, that more. It talks about, that socially created, socially constructed. So the major consequences that impacts, the lifestyle of the people. The ethnic minorities have, that discriminated. They are also, that always discriminated when there happens, that majority ethnicity. Of course, how the Tamilians in Sri Lanka got discriminated by Sinhalese community, you might be aware, that led to the liberation tigers of Tamilidom, then ultimately war, the Sri Lankan civil war, and also India's involvement, 1987 Sri Lanka Accord, and assassination of Rajiv Gandhi, LTT, the decimated. Now, the things gone, you might be aware, that provincial autonomy and reconstruction of, the post-reconstruction of the war-torn Sri Lanka, where India's contribution, you might be aware. So ethnic minorities, how Tamilians were ill-treated, that in the Sinhalese dominated Sri Lanka, you might be aware. And also, that discriminated in terms of income, prestige, education, and degree, that it is that way, that we are talking about. So Hispanics, that are more accumulated, that well than blacks, but less than, the whites. We are talking about, the difference in multiple ethnicity in the United States of America, you might be aware. And that all those things, even the European society, you witness that. And coming back, of course, that. So the Marxist scholars like, Stuart Hall, that we are talking about, the sociologists advocated ethnic population constitute underclass and bourgeois class divided, the proletariats into different ethnic segments. This is further discrimination, how ethnic minorities were, is the corroborative evidence we are talking about. Thus, gender, ethnicity, race, or socially constructed inequality. Socially constructed inequality in society, which leads to uneven distribution of important resources like power, wealth, prestige, etc. It is German. I'm talking about, of course, that we are talking about all these things. You understood the various forms of, that the very social stratification, of course, various dimensions. Of course, we have to talk about, social mobility. What is social mobility? It is a concept which talks about movement of people from one stratum to another. Otherwise, in the ladder of, social progress, how capable, that how is a section of population moving up or coming down. It is that way. So let us take the support of, that global social mobility index, that says how a particular nation is open or closed. You might be aware. So if you take into account all Scandinavian countries, they are very open. Talk about, so Nordic Council, Nordic or Scandinavian countries, and some countries from European Union. Of course, that, see, with the India's rank is, that 42.7, of course, we are talking about 76th rank. But China with 45th rank, given the fact it is non-democratic nation, poor in transparency. Huh? I don't believe this. But anyway, because that's what all indices, the international, the global indices, that always, they criticize because the weightage they give to is not free from philosophy. But whatever may be somewhat, it is a global index we have to take into account. It says when comparing with China, we are more closed. And comparing with all Scandinavian countries, we are more close. We don't have, much, that space for social mobility. It says, our society is rigid when comparing with China, when comparing with all European countries, when comparing with all Scandinavian countries. Highly rigid, highly closed, where section of population not freely allowed to move up. Maybe predominantly rural, predominantly, that ultimately agriculture dependent country. And otherwise, we are yet to, that fix those issues of poverty, illiteracy, unemployment, gender injustice, social inequalities. Maybe, that once we fix that, probably that provides, opportunity. Maybe the corruption, nepotism, favoritism, cronyism, all vicious circles of poverty, and also other, the measures we are talking about, the identity politics. Right, even corporate driven politics we are talking about, of course. So accordingly, a society is, that said to be open or closed on the basis of social mobility, when it is capable of allowing people to move freely from one stratum to another, the ladder of social progress, it is called open. When it is not done, it is a rigid or closed society. Urban, industrial, modern society, more open. Rural, traditional, The primitive societies are said to be closed. Here you've got index, that where we stand vis-a-vis China, where we stand vis-a-vis European and Scandinavian countries. Let's join it that way. So you've got various types of mobility: upward, downward, horizontal, vertically, intergenerational, intragenerational. And what are all the sources responsible for the mobility, internal, external, and also the causes, the reasons behind the mobility that we are talking about, and we are going to take you to that level. Of course, stratification, very well, I'm keep on reinforcing, is a system by which different positions are hierarchically divided. The society is stratified and accordingly ranking or gradation. The social mobility, when you talk about it, is a possibility of moving upward. It is a possibility of moving upward or downward across the social ladder. Either you move up, the principle of inclination, or come down. Vijay Mallaya, that Nero Modi, they came down. But whereas, that you move up, that ultimately you work hard, you earn money, don't cheat, and ultimately, that you be, good taxpayer. Otherwise, that you work hard, you give opportunity to others, you go up later. So it's that way. So the phenomenon of social mobility is widely associated with modern societies. They're called open societies. On the other hand, societies based on ascriptive, still you respect people based on the caste and based on ascriptive pattern, maybe race. In that sense, it is closed society. It is a rigid society, considered to be closed. Otherwise, with remote possibility, there is no possibility to mobility. So if you are respected only based on age, if you are respected only based on gender, if you are respected, not gender, if you are respected only based on, that the very race, the caste, it's over there. If you are respected based on your, achievement, the difference you make in the society, the impact, that's totally different. That's achievement status. Here, when it is based on ascriptive pattern, it's that nil mobility or zero mobility we talk about. It's a closed society, rigid society. However, in reality, no society is absolutely open and no society is absolutely closed. See, both a judicious combination. There is no absolutely open society. There is no, even the United States of America. That you got people are deprived, right? People don't have opportunity. As Hillary Rodham Clinton, emphasized, 8 crore people pushed to poverty because of COVID situation, because of Trump's maladministration. Then they are relatively deprived. They feel rigid system. And maybe the George Floyd, the racism practice and associated protests, how this, the Trump handled the situation, that's, that it's not open. Maybe the anti-immigration policies, the America for Americans, going against outsourcing or H1B visa measures, everything says, though you may be a progressive nation, you are not free from all these, the characteristics of the closed society, the rigidity. So no society is, absolutely open or absolutely closed. You understand the point of view? It is that way. So, however, in reality, no society is absolutely open. That's what we are talking about. Of course, that, right. Let me take. So, the social mobility in the closed system, that we are talking about in a closed system in the sense, a slavery, the master slave, that where human beings are, they're treated like a commodity. The master has got unlimited, that control over slaves. Sometimes, he resorts to violence. Master slave, ancient slavery mechanism. If we abolish slavery, it's no more in practice. Sometimes when all slaves come together, that may go against. That may bring, ultimately make the system that dismantles the slavery system, making it open. The American slavery, what happened? American Civil War. That became free society. You might be aware. Of course, the very, the treatment, we meted out the past, India's independence. How? It is that way. The apartheid regime in South Africa. You might be aware. So it is that way. The estate system we are talking about, of course, it is the caste system, what we have, agrarian-based landlord serfdom, what we have in Indian context. The counterpart in European society is called estate system, where they've got, the clergy, nobility, commoner, clergy, nobility, commoner, clergy, church people, people who pray for all, nobility, people who protect all, commoner, people who work for all. That is what the European society, the estate system, different law governing, different segments. When you go up, more privileged. When you come down, you are more disprivileged. So that is why we are talking about. So the mobility was possible to act of grace of the monarch. The monarch decides ultimately, that whether an individual or social group should be given mobility or not. You are under the disposal, whims and fancies of the monarchy there. So that is the estate system we are talking about. There was also the possibility of, that the mobility, that within the closed system. Though you say slavery, estate system, the caste system of India, closed system, you got opportunity. But in Indian caste system, as I told you in the beginning, the M.N. Srinivas, who said, that of course social mobility was possible. How? Because of, that Sanskritization and Westernization. That's what, even in the closed system, Indian caste system, that he witnessed that, that the movement of that of course not structural change, mere positional change, cultural change. Those status fixed by birth according to the caste system. Of course, the by deed, people say by deed, it's not by birth, by deed. But that counter arguments you might be aware, but of course go. So social mobility has, how they occurred. If you ask me, that industrialization, commercialization, the people migrated from rural to urban areas, in pursuit of employment, to work in the factories. That changed the lifestyle, access to, social sectors, and commercialization of occupation. Then instead of, that the produce, crop share, they started getting money, the currencies. Ultimately, with that, the petty bourgeois, petty ownership, they started doing something. These commercialization measures changed, and politicization of caste. Some, that the caste, that ultimately even Dalit caste, how? Because of their access to, the political sphere, and mobility accordingly, like Dr. Ambedkar, K.R. Narayanan, and what you're talking about, even B.C. Balayogi, one from speaker from Andhra Pradesh, and even northeastern states you are talking about, how tribal communities are, occupying position. The Jharkhand Mukti Morcha, Sibu Soren, you talk about all those, and even northeastern, it is that way. Even the Dalit caste, politicization of caste, so the bargaining power, even dominant caste, they acquire, they capture the power. Even the very Nadar community in Tamil Nadu, they were not hitherto, in the past respected, but they become, access to the commercialization, occupation, and also their political participation now. After Kamaraj, a great leader, that honest leader Kamaraj, that you talk about, their participation, of course, and also, that intercaste marriages ultimately diluting the caste system, the closed, that nature of the society, the mobility it gets, and access to land and economic resources. That with the money you are capable of investing and resorting to, so that some other activities. And as said by M.N. Srinivas, in Indian context, of course, Sanskritization and Westernization responsible for, that social mobility within the caste system we are talking about. Ladies and gentlemen, that way, of course, let me take you to the next level. Of course, so the M.N. Srinivas, with these, Sanskritization and Westernization, was able to highlight upon the possibility of social mobility in a particular, that and social change in general. That it talks about mere cultural change, but social change in general that he witnessed in the Mysore. In the case study we are talking about, that so we speak about all these things. Even within a closed system, closed society, mobility is possible. Of course, slavery, estate system, and the very caste system we spoke, ladies and gentlemen. And also due to improvement of their position in economic structure, the caste groups claim higher position the ritual structure also. As I said, Nadar community now, right? The non-Brahmins, the dominating in some spheres, of course, most of the spheres, OBC politics, Ben. It is that way we are talking about. So that social mobility is possible in closed society, closed societies as well. That's the conclusion. Of course, I think, that the horizontal mobility, it refers to mere, the migration. Occupational position, that we are talking about. Horizontal mobility, when you say the role of an individual without changing the position. When you are engineer here, there also you are engineer. When you're doctor, there also engineer. Maybe as a collector, that you are also, the transfer to another district. That's all. But that without changing the social position in the social hierarchy. That talks about mere horizontal mobility, positional change. The transfer, of course, you call. That without changing the ladder, without changing your social position, the hierarchy. Right? Rural agricultural laborers migrated to the city and they become daily wage. You are labor here, you are yet another labor there. That is what I say. When people gone to America or that some European countries, that here local people thinking that he's in America, he's in Europe, he's worker here. He's yet another worker there. I used to tell them, that. But people here, they'll be thinking he's came from all the way US, One day, fine morning, what happened when this person dies? The people, some reasons, I'm not speaking bad about them. Some reasons they are unable to come here. You have to die all alone. Hitherto you are pricing that your kids are in America, Europe, everywhere. But when you are dying, nobody is there to take care of you. Ultimately, neighborhood comes into the picture. This is what the scenario happening. So you have to you be very clear. Whatever may be the place, you are worker here. Maybe job pursuit, employment. You understand, of course. That after some time you have to think about it, but it's not interfering in somebody else. The career decision or growth perspective. I'm talking about other side of the coin. So thing which is that you cherish for a particular point of time may not be the same after some time. Nothing is permanent. That the very day the parents proud that their kids are in USA somewhere. Later, the 20 years, I personally witnessed, with my relatives, my friends' families. They started, the people gone, they never come back. That they simply, they throw money, they never take care. It has become business for them. No payback, no gratitude. So that's what we are talking about, ladies and gentlemen. So, you are laborer here, you are yet another laborer. You don't become, that you are not Kamala Harris there. You are not Jindal there. You are not Shanmugam of Singapore there. You have to understand. You are yet another worker. That's all. Why? That whatever may be. So it is that way. It's mere migration. That is clear-cut example of horizontal mobility I'm talking about. Sometimes that what the money they get from there, maybe in size, in terms of dollars, maybe more than India, but their lifestyle they spend more. It is equal. Again equal. Again equal. So that is what that mere quantity of currency, not the quality we are talking about. Of course, quality, if at all you say, it's not free from the contamination or chemicals, and later they lament, they come back here and buy 2 acres of land, they go for organic farming. That is the story. What's happening, well. Ladies and gentlemen, they are afraid of all those ill effects of science and technology. They want to have clean, green air world. It is that way we are talking about. Of course, the vertical mobility, it is about in the hierarchy of ladder, how do you go up or come down? It is that way. It refers to the change in position leading to change in status in the social hierarchy. It becomes change. Probably, that today, that maybe you are civil service aspirant. Tomorrow, once you become, IAS, IPS, the hierarchy, that you are the number one in your district hierarchy. That's vertical mobility I'm talking about. That maybe it is that way. So the movement can be upward as well as downward also. Sometimes guys like Vijay Mallya, Nirav Modi, and the Sahara scam, the Subhatra Rai, it is a downward direction we are talking about. Right, upward mobility, a Dalit boy clears UPSC examination and becoming IAS, so that can be said, upward mobility. A downward mobility, maybe a businessman opts that a menial job. Of course, they're coming back. The owner became worker after suffering huge loss. COVID situation has made a lot of downward mobilities. That even once that a lot of entrepreneurs I know, that they were worried, the business gone. So it is that way. The owner becoming worker. It is a downward mobility for a lot of entrepreneurs. For your kind information, maybe demonetization or GST. Now COVID crisis over. That social mobility can be further classified into intergenerational or intragenerational. Intergenerational mobility, that you're talking about between generation. Your father was, that a school teacher. You became district collector. Intergenerational. Intragenerational mobility. Maybe that within in our concept, those days we considered that 30 years as one generation. Now it is it has got reduced to 10 years. People now say 5 years for one generation. Such is the rapid change people are talking about. And that is the scenario. In 5 years, you just see, that maybe your economic development, your progress, your career progress. Maybe in 2 years, you finish Oxford, Harvard, maybe IIM, IIT, you get placed somewhere in the corporate. Of course, you join, that 5 crores per annum club, whatever maybe. That that intra-generational. Within a generation, you reach that way. It's possible within 5 years. Now, I'm saying in right means dharma way. Or you can become MP, or that MLA, you can earn crores by indulging in corruption. That's different story. The stigma, social stigma. Huh? Some of the guys, that forgot the password for that invested money also in the European country. Otherwise intermediate cheated them. Well. So there are various factors, that affected that the mobility in a societal setup. That you talk about. How what are all the ways with which social mobility got affected. Of course, the social mobility because of rapid industrialization and also commercialization, we spoke already about it. New ideology such as democracy that recognize from monarchic to democracy. When you move up, ultimately that adult franchisee, the reservation, the political participation, that changes. Social mobility given to Dalit tribal people, women reservation, even minority reservation, and also migration, as I told, rural to urban migration, modern education that gives you a lot of opportunities. You become entrepreneur, intellectual, a leader in your own capacity, and various new institutions, maybe IITs, IIMs, even the role of abroad education institutions, maybe that finishing school programs that enables your skill responsible. Ultimately such changes in society provides various opportunities to individuals, that achievement for higher status. These factors provide scope for social mobility, that we spoke already. It's a little bit elaboration, ladies and gentlemen. And not only that, we also talk about, that the cause of, the social mobility, it is the internal spirit that actually motivates people to go for, you have to achieve something, the strong motive, the purpose, the direction, that you want to ensure your progress, social progress in the social ladder. That internal spirit, the motivate, highly motivated, like Jack Ma, Jeff Bezos, Steve Jobs, that you want, they become your role model. Ultimately, you want to achieve like them. And also here one person, that nearby in Coimbatore, that one Arunachalam, who did, that low cost, that sanitary napkins, that he brought under, the Times of India magazine as one of the important personalities. I even participated that time membership that time. It has to be appreciated, that a lot of struggles he did, the sacrifice he faced in his lifetime. Muruganandam, Muruganandam, that Arunachalam Muruganandam, I think that name is correct, I believe. So it is that way. There are people in your own locality, they become, that achievers. The strong internal spirit to make difference in society, to understand the purpose, the cause, why I came, what is my purpose. Maybe that drives you. The feeling of relative deprivation. Sometimes, you are deprived from, you have been, you're not allowed to enjoy the same thing which your friends or relatives were allowed to enjoy. That forces you, that you fix your ambition, you fix your goal, then you start working on it, burning midnight oil, the tireless efforts and smart work, and with your team, that ultimately you learn, you go for SWOT analysis, ultimately you make it happen. So it is based on socio-cultural aspects, economic opportunities, and like Ambedkar, K.R. Narayan, how determined we are in spite of the odds or challenges they faced. Nothing stopped them, they became unstoppable. So it has, that it has to be there for a person, that for a person to think about, mobility. So maybe internal spirit, the combination of both external and internal factors are required. Social mobility, it is not mere, society facilitating you, that there should be, that what is that, it should be internal. That should be on your suo moto, we say, sui generis, otherwise you can speak that way, that it is that way from your own part. There should be, that intention, the motive to come up, to progress. That unless until you move, how long you can expect society to push you? Unless until, that you start moving, nothing happens. That is, it is inside out, not outside in. But of course, inside out plus outside in, that is the combination, the social mobility we are talking about. Of course, though both are separate, they work in coordination. There should be strong motive from your part to progress, and also societal support. That as a source and cause of the social mobility are like two sides of a single coin. The both coordinated efforts, takes the society moves forward. Otherwise, it moves forward the people, takes society to the next level. That the progressive society you are talking about, of course. Ladies and gentlemen, of course, that. So the various resources, I think hitherto we spoke, we gave brief introduction about sociology, the social stratification as a unit and mobility. And we have seen, that the previous year questions and stratification, that with syllabus, the relevance, and also we spoke, of course, that not only that, the basic concepts, then various perspectives, structural functionalism school of thought, and also the conflict school of thought, where Max Weber and Karl Marx, and also the various forms of social stratification we discussed, that the slavery estate, that, and also the caste system, the closed system. And we are talking about, of course, that how the gender, race, ethnicity, apart from that, social classes, and the Karl Marx social classes, economic dimension, whereas Max Weber spoke about, social status and party, the political dimension. And also how the social stratification as universal process, how it is functional for effective role allocation and performance in a particular society. Through, it is one of the functional prerequisites, that that's according to, the structural functionalism school of thought, Kingsley Davis, Wilbert E. Moore. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, and also, that movement of people from one, that stratum to another. That accordingly society is called open society, closed society. We spoke at length. And also, that vertical mobility, horizontal mobility, vertical mobility, upward mobility, downward mobility, horizontal mobility, mere, without change of status in the hierarchy. You talk about, mere transfer, or even within a generation, intra-generational mobility, or between generation, intergenerational mobility. We spoke various causes, that responsible for social mobility. We spoke, and sources, both internal, external. We spoke. I think that's fantastic, ladies and gentlemen. I think it is right time. That let me take you the very Haralambas. That sociological themes and perspectives. That maybe that this is the fantastic book for that. That you can go through. There is a chapter, good chapter. That's fantastic. You can go through also, and also ignore materials and the NCERT books. That you can touch. Yes, Jack. It is that way. I think it is right time. Let me take you now. You see the original UPSC questions after this discussions. Can you understand the questions now? This is what I wanted. Now you know the stuff, and I think is it making any difference now? The question. Yeah, let me take you. Davis and Moore made it clear that the social stratification is functional necessity and also an unconscious device. Now you can answer. Sociological review on middle class. We spoke at length. What is a Marxist concept of fetishism of commodities? That leads to alienation, the capitalistic exploitation. Compare and contrast the contributions of Karl Marx, Max Weber. Economic dimensions of Karl Marx within conflict school of thought, and Max Weber's social dimension along with the economic dimensions of Karl Marx. We spoke. Status party, life chances, lifestyle. Karl Marx, infrastructure shapes superstructure. Yes. And what is the difference between natural and social? Natural inequality, of course, you talk about, so that natural, you can't do anything. But we are talking about socially constructed inequality. The natural inequality, maybe the gender, race, you can do nothing, even age. But that is very natural. Socially constructed, socially created inequality. Social stratification is all about that. That is what, the various forms, we spoke, of course, that where the gender injustice, because, we are talking about, and also social classes, and also the status. We spoke everything we are talking about, ladies and gentlemen. And examples, that we also, the strictly caste system, how class system, and even class system, how, the polarization of the class system, house have nots, Karl Marx, but whereas expanding middle class according to Max Weber, the property upper class, propertyless white collar workers, petty bourgeois, manual working class, the class dimension. Even Anthony Giddens talking about upper class, middle class, lower class, well. The caste system, of course, based on purity, pollution, nation, but class dimension based on ownership over economic resources. Caste system, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, accordingly privileges, disprivileges, we spoke. Outside of the caste system, Chandalas, outcast, you said, all these things we spoke. That I'll be separately dealing sessions for question solving where I'll be touching, to the point, but now my point is to elaborate the syllabus and link with, the question so that you understand the questions, and with the resources available, you are going to work on it, enrich your understanding. And apart from that, the Davis structural functional theory, Kingsley Davis, that says, elucidate the premises of social stratification, how far it is relevant in understanding contemporary Indian society. The contemporary Indian society, where you can talk about, the presence of UPSC, yes, the Staff Selection Commission, even, IBPS, that various mechanisms on the part of, that set net, you got, that teacher recruitment board, part of, the state public service commission. You got how the effective role allocation and performance. Why do you go for, that social stratification as a functional prerequisite? And also the people, that with expertise, that they are recruited, they are given training, and you see that you also monitor in their performance. Effective role allocation and performance, as I said, Tirukkural, of course, இதனை இதனால் இவன் முடிக்கும் என்று ஆராய்ந்து அதனை அவன் கண்பிடல். We spoke at length. And also, that the various forms of social stratification, we said it is not sex, gender, rather social dimension, ethnicity, race plus culture, even the race as major dimensions of social stratification. Right? It is that way, that when you say social stratification, what is the formula? It is not only talking about social inequality based on a particular the criteria, and also you parallelly talk about ranking or hierarchy, gradation, social gradation, accordingly privileges, disprivileges you speak about, then only the process is complete. The rights and duties you talk about, privileges, disprivileges, social distance, it is that way. So, and education, that the major instrument of, the social change and social mobility in contemporary society, in what way, responsible for, that provides opportunity. the access to that the employment, the purchasing power, and you become entrepreneur, you stand on your own, you become role model. Right. It is maybe that gives you the skill enablement with which that you can, that is what the education is all about. It's not giving the fish through freebies and sharing the technology of fishing. That gives lifelong support. That is what education we talk about. That is responsible. But you can never think about that the very achievement of Dr. Ambedkar, even K.R. Narayan, and belonging to the Dalit, the scholars, without the support of education. It is the education with which they became role models. You might be aware. Right. That is why that even the modern day governments, we expect there should be social sector investment should be more. We expect 6+6 health plus that education 12% of GDP. But fortunately, we did in that new education policy 6% of GDP allocation done. But there comes challenge with the support of state governments. They are going to implement. But in health sector, it is very that it's not that way. We're talking about 1.5% of GDP. That's very wrong. Among Brazil countries, we are very poor in terms of investigation. When you combine both education, that and health sector, that comes only 7.7% of GDP. Even economic survey revealing that. You might be aware. That when US spending 18%, we are not even spending this much. That you have to understand. So both health and education combined together should be 12%. Fortunately, education we address through new education policy. Health we are yet to. That talks about that it is that way we are talking about. So both as I said, both internal and external, that the motive on the part of individual as well as the governmental support or societal support we are talking about. And also that we also that spoke about evaluation. Social stratification is functional, yes, no doubt. It's promoting social order because of the division of labor and the effective role allocation and performance, no doubt. Social mobility, we spoke. Sources, causes, just now we discussed. Social mobility possible in closed system, yes, we proved. Slavery, estate, caste system, we did that through M.N. Srinivas, Sanskritization, Westernization, we spoke. And various research work, especially that M.N. Srinivas research work on that the Kurz society, you might be aware. So now you understand that you linked with, ladies and gentlemen, this is the right time that we spoke at length. I think that that you have to work on based on this understanding. Please work with the resources what we have suggested, especially Harlambus plus IGNOU materials. You understand more. You understand better than me. I become your foundation. You move to the next level with my basic foundation or support. Ladies and gentlemen, it is the right way. I think that thanks for participating. I think I appreciate your participation otherwise. Hope I would have made some difference in terms of your understanding. Ladies and gentlemen, please use my referral code, say success, to avail maximum 10% discount. Please go for iconic program. Otherwise, choose what suits you. Ladies and gentlemen, it's that way. You got based on your budget and time availability, you got that from 1 month to the 3 years course part of Unacademy. You have please choose and make use of that all those the things on the part of Unacademy. Ladies and gentlemen, appreciating you once again. This is Success Sampath signing off from you. Good night. Let's meet tomorrow with another topic. Appreciating your participation. Thank you so much. Fantastic.